Hi, everybody. I'm Rebecca,
And I'm Landon.
and we are joining you tonight to talk about something really important, aren't we?
We are. Yep, we're back to McKinney and Temples again.
Woo, we are. And this is another one of our midnight podcasts. In fact, I feel like we should sing Midnight at Mormonish Podcast, right? Put your camel to bed. Does anyone know that song? No, it's super
No,
old. So am I. It doesn't matter. We're just going to get started.
all these midnight Mormon shows that are popping up, and we're actually here at midnight.
Yeah, and we're not live, so
We're
nobody
not
cares.
live. Yep.
Okay, no, nobody cares. All right, it doesn't matter. This is going to be an awesome podcast. We're going to update you on everything you need to know about the McKinney Temple in Fairview, Texas. And at the very end, a little rundown of some of the other ones. But the main focus tonight is on McKinney because that meeting is coming up in just a few weeks.
Yeah, and they also came out with a new website that we want to
Yep.
talk about and go over that's got some interesting things on it that I think people will be interested to see.
Yeah, we are going to focus on the website for sure and on a meeting and an announcement. So let's pull up our slides and get right to it.
Okay. Do that.
I'll take a nap in the meantime. How about that?
There you go. Okay.
All right. As I said, we're going to be talking about the McKinney, Texas Temple, 43,000 square feet, 173-foot tall spire. It was announced back in October of 2022.
We should say an alleged 173
Oh,
foot
all
tall
right.
spire because that's what they're shooting for.
We don't know. We have no idea. They're shooting for the stars that no one will see once the bright lights of the temple blast everything into the stratosphere. All right, here we go. So just to update you quickly on when we last left Fairview, meaning the last thing we podcasted on, there had been a town council meeting and they had voted, we've got to postpone. We're not going to do anything right now. We're going to give the church 2 months. And what did they say they needed to come back with, Landon? What does that say?
Yeah, they said simply come back with a plan that includes a 42-foot roof height and a 68-foot steeple, which is the same as the largest religious building in Fairview, your own meeting house.
Your own meeting house. They already have the largest religious building in Fairview, which is very funny. And on another podcast with Nemo, we showed that a temple, for example, like the Yorba Linda Temple in California, right, would fit very nicely right there and meet all the parameters of the town and also all the needs of the church because they're very specific. We need this number of ordinance rooms and this number of baptistries.
And we should point out that these 42 and 68 are actually higher. 68 is the highest steeple in town. 42 is higher than the 35-foot allowed by code. So the city is granting additional room here.
Yep.
They're just saying we're not going to be ridiculous and give you something that's 3 times taller than the highest steeples in town.
Exactly. That's why I had to make this meme because I love Lord of the Rings because I am that geeky. One does not simply build something that is almost 3 times taller than the tallest religious building in town. And you're absolutely right, Landon. Even these height stipulations, this would be a conditional use permit. This would be a special permit to get this height, but this is the precedent in the town right there, 42 and 68. Their own stake center already has that. So anyway, the next thing that happened in Fairview is there was a meeting with some church representatives and some representatives of the town. It was behind closed doors. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. And this is coming from the church. And this meeting was very interesting. I think the best way to describe it is to have the church's own words. And so following this meeting, the church put out a statement letting everybody know what transpired at this meeting with Fairview town officials and also LDS officials. Do you want to read this, Landon?
Yeah, and we shouldn't say what transpired. We should say they put out a statement about what they want you to think transpired.
Okay. All right. Let's be specific. Yes, that's exactly right. This is their spin on what transpired.
This is
How
their
about
spin.
that?
A media statement update on progress of the McKinney, Texas Temple. As we continue to work through the approval process for the McKinney, Texas Temple, we appreciate the goodwill of those helping to make this sacred place of worship possible. This morning, representatives from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints met with Fairview Town Mayor Henry Lessner, Mayor Pro Tem John Hubbard, Town Manager Julie Couch, and Town Attorney Clark McCoy to discuss the proposed McKinney Temple. During this meeting, the church presented a good faith offer that included reducing the height of the temple by approximately 15 feet and changing the name of the temple. Despite these significant concessions, those in attendance said they would not support or recommend this offer to the town council. Furthermore, the town attorney refused to allow church representatives to meet with the other town council members to address their concerns directly. We remain hopeful that we can reach a mutual agreement and continue to work towards a solution that benefits both the town of Fairview and the local membership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For more information about the McKinney Temple project, please visit McKinneyTexasTemple.org, which is the new website we will be talking about.
That's right. So this statement, and we've read it several times. We've read it on a podcast with Nemo. We've dissected it on the Mormon newscast, but I still just shake my head every time I read it. For one, the good faith offer and the significant concession of reducing it by 15 feet, right? And it says approximately, so we don't know. It could be a little bit more, a little bit less. And also that name change. What do you think about both of those significant concessions?
Well, it's ridiculous to call that a significant concession. Number one, it's not a concession. There are zoning codes that you must meet. You don't say, "Oh, we'll meet you. We'll go 3 times as high, and then we'll cut a few feet off, and that's a concession we'll make." So we've compromised. You should approve it. There's height codes, and that's the height you get. You don't get to build your house. The limit's 35 feet. You don't get to go in and say, "Oh, well, I wanted 72 feet, and I'm going to knock it down to 70." They're not going to, if you do that with your house, they're not going to approve it. If you do it with the church, they're not going to do it. They're allowing certain latitude for the steeple height for a church, but they're saying you have to follow the precedents of the town. So to say that this was not a significant concession at all, this is basically the church, after being given 2 months to make significant changes, which is what they asked for. They said, "You're not even close to our zoning laws. Here's what you need to come back with." After spending half of that time now, a whole month's gone by, this is what they come back with. And I should note, this is exactly what we predicted they'd come back with, that they'd knock a few feet off the top and they'd say they'd rename the temple, that would be the concessions they'd make. And that's exactly what they made. This is 2 middle fingers up to the town council saying, we aren't making any changes. And what have they done? What things have they done over this last month? Well, they hired a new lawyer.
A real estate lawyer, as I understand. Very high power. Yeah.
That's right. They've had a fast.
So that everybody would change their mind and soften their hearts.
The hearts.
And the adversary would stop working, because all those people there, it's the adversary, yes.
Which is clearly these town officials who are enforcing the zoning codes of their
hard
town.
Hearts.
They're these hard-hearted city council members who are enforcing their zoning codes. And they seem to have flown people out from Salt Lake to make this good faith offer.
Yeah.
This good faith is, if this is good faith, the church, has no faith.
You gotta have faith. You gotta have faith. Yeah. See, I'm just going to sing all night long. It's going to keep me awake. This is great. I need my Diet Coke. So no, you're exactly right. And the other thing to point out here is they say that, let's see, furthermore, the town attorney refused to allow church representatives to meet with the other town council members to address their concerns directly. That is not the case. There are sunshine laws in most towns which say that things can't happen behind closed doors. They have to be out in the open with a certain number of people representing each side. Everyone has to know what's going on. If they were to meet privately, that kind of thing could come back to bite them in the you-know-what. You know, if things pass or don't pass, people could say, this was not done correctly. So, and we'll see this more when we read the mayor's statement in a minute, but the attorney is simply saying, no, you cannot meet with the church attorneys. However, the town council is happy to meet with church representatives. The problem is that most church representatives are attorneys. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But to make it sound, to spin it this way, and I think that's just the talking point for members, to say, look, we tried. They won't let us meet. And that is not the case at all. The town is very meticulously following the laws that they need to follow to make sure everything happens the way it's supposed to happen with full transparency. And they are very particular about that.
And the church knows this. They know that they're not allowed to meet with the entire council. They're saying they want to meet individually with them, and they say any citizens can call up their representative and have a discussion with them. But the church's attorneys are not going to meet individually with the town. And let's ask what good is going to come from that. Why do the church attorneys need to meet with the town council? They've already just come and said, we're not making any changes. So what are they going to do? They're going to threaten to sue them. They're going to threaten to sue them personally. What are they going to say individually to these members of the town council that they aren't willing to say in public meeting and just put out and say? There is nothing good that comes from a meeting behind closed doors. And these council members, this town council, they are volunteers.
Yeah.
So you're going to take up their time to talk to them, and you sent people who can't make any decisions.
Yep.
So these lawyers, if they come in and the town councilman says, "Are you willing to do this?" He'd say, "Well, I got to take it back to the church." You didn't send a decision maker to discuss anything. You are wasting their time. Everybody knows it. And anyone who looks at this can see that the church is simply trying to make it sound like it's the town council's fault that they're not making any changes and that they're bad people because they're not willing to listen to them when they presented nothing. They came back with nothing. And everyone can see that this is just a tactic they're using to make them look good in front of their members and make the town council look bad. And this is just bad form all the way around from the church.
Yeah, I feel like we should tell everybody to turn their volume down because we are starting to get more and more, really just tired of this and these kind of ridiculous statements that come out. Because if you think about it, the very first interaction that the church ever had with the people of Fairview was to go into that meeting, and we have a recording of it on Mormonish. And the first thing they said is, "Hi, I'm the lawyer," pretty much. And the DOJ, if you guys don't do it, they'll sue you. I mean, they led with suing. And so I can only think that insisting on meeting privately, they're going to allude to that like they did in Cody. You better be prepared to defend your decision in court if you don't vote with this. So they're very litigious and they're leading with that. And to say that these things that they said, these significant concessions, they're exactly the opposite. Let's go to our next slide. So the mayor came out with a statement to try to explain to people what had happened. This is a media statement. And the mayor, who was in that meeting, said town representatives voiced appreciation for the church's offer. Remember that offer? Negative 15 feet off and renaming the temple? Yep. But they expressed their view that reducing the steeple from 173 to 157 feet did not resolve the concerns regarding height, and they believed others in the town council would feel the same way. The town's attorney advised the church lawyers should not meet individually with the council members about the application before the public meeting scheduled for August 6th. Again, these are these sunshine regulations, as it is important that all the requirements of Texas Open Meetings Act. And if you watch the newscast, RFM went into this pretty specifically. These are specific, and these kind of laws exist everywhere in every town. And the town's process for review of pending zoning applications be followed. So who is obeying the 12th article of faith? Who is following the laws of the land? The town. Who is not? Who is trying to wiggle around and do some things behind the scene? The church.
Yeah, this is just discouraging to see, how they have spun this to make it look bad. The town is following the requirements. You cannot have more than, I think it's 2 of the members of the town council. If they meet, that's a quorum, and that then becomes a public meeting in which it wasn't announced. There was no agenda. Things can be discussed. Other members who were in opposition didn't get a chance to speak. This is completely against the laws, and they're simply saying, we're not going to break the laws for you. you must follow the laws, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. And I feel, however, that probably most members will read the church's statement. They will never see the mayor's statement to understand, so the members are being misled. And so the one thing that we didn't cover that we had talked about was a new name, and that's been really an interesting scenario here with the temple. So first it was announced in Prosper, Texas, 30 miles, I think, away, as the Prosper Temple. And then that kind of went away for kind of mysterious circumstances. Prosper might not have been the best name for a temple anyway, right? Because, it sounds too prosperous, maybe.
Yes.
I don't know. So then it's in Fairview, right? But it's called McKinney. So you can't really probably call it Fairview because, as you pointed out a million times, Landon, their view will no longer be fair. It's going to be ruined once that temple is built.
But
So
ruined view doesn't sound great for a temple either.
Bad view, blocked view, temple, no. So the fact that they named it McKinney, of course, what they didn't know, they tend to name it after the zip code, the area. There's some strong feelings between Fairview and McKinney over an airport scenario. And so some people have said, and, insult to injury, just like the last straw is that you want to build it in Fairview and call it McKinney. Now, I don't really know that the town people it's not, they're like, oh, we'll rename it for you. Like it's some amazing concession. I don't really think that's the case. It doesn't matter if it's blocking someone's view, what it's called. But of course we were curious and we started kicking around, what could they call it? And we were trying to come up with something that's, I don't know, kind of a beloved name in the Dallas area. Is that kind of the way that you were thinking, Landon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just something that everybody would recognize, that would have kind of a positive,
iconic.
What? Iconic.
Something iconic.
Iconic name in the Dallas area, and something positive that everybody would have huge name recognition. And, not that Landon and I try to tell the church what to do, but we came up with something that we feel fits all that criteria: beloved, iconic, Dallas area, instant name recognition. Let's go to our next slide, Landon. What did we call it? The South Fork Ranch Temple. And our slogan is where families can be together forever, whether they want to or not. And of course, we're talking about Dallas. And I'm hoping that our audience is not too young to remember this. This was my favorite show. We didn't have a TV growing up, so I would arrange to babysit for somebody else that had a TV on the night that Dallas was playing. One time I took a new gig for someone I hadn't babysat with before. I was all excited. I went in. I'm like, you guys don't have a TV. What the heck? I would not have taken this job on a Friday night. I have to watch Dallas. Okay. So yeah, this was the big one. So we think the South Fork Ranch Temple would spread positive vibes everywhere in the Dallas area, don't you?
And I actually looked it up. South Fork Ranch is in Parker, Texas, which is very near this area, not far away, just a few minutes away, closer than Dallas. So
I know where I'm taking a field trip to then, because I am not kidding. And, we started thinking, okay, remember, for those of you that do remember, who shot JR? That was the season cliffhanger of one of the seasons. And I think it was the most widely viewed television program for decades. It may still hold some kind of record, when they came back next season. And so we started thinking, okay, so JR, oh, I know, the musket fire talk, right? That was given by a JR Holland.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be like, who would
JR Holland
point a musket at in order to get the temple built? I don't know. We're just grabbing at straws here, but we did realize there was some kind of a JR connection here. So anyway, too much fun, but I like that. The South Fork Ranch Temple. I love it.
And I do want to say, if we go back one, they said they'd lower the steeple by 15 feet. Let's not forget the roof height is almost 18 feet taller than what's allowed, which is even more significant almost than the steeple, because it blocks everything. And so they didn't even address the roof height, which is almost twice, what's allowed by
it's
code.
way more massive. That is going to block a large area where the steeple, is slightly thinner. Okay. So we've been talking about this, alluding to it. This is what we are going to go through, parts of it anyway. A new McKinney Temple website causes a big stir. This is kind of interesting. So the first thing that happened is people started sending us these letters that were going out to surrounding stakes, like tons of stakes, announcing this new amazing website. So Landon, do you want to read this? This is an example. It's pretty much word for word. They just kind of cut and paste all these stakes. This one went to the Frisco, Texas stake.
Yeah, and it says, we've been invited to share the following message from our area leadership. So this was an area thing.
Yeah, I'm
Dear
guessing that would
brothers
be
and-
Canon. That's the name that I've
Yeah.
heard. So
Dear brothers and sisters, in an effort to keep church members and the community well informed about the McKinney, Texas Temple, a dedicated website has been launched, and then they give the address. This website serves as a source of information regarding the temple, providing accurate details about its progress. The website will be continually updated with new information as it becomes available, ensuring that all have access to the latest developments and announcements. Please share this site with friends and neighbors who may have any questions or concerns about the temple and the building process. It can also serve as a means to correct misinformation in public social media discussions. Thank you for your continued faith and support. You received this email because you made your email address available to your local church leaders. And
well,
then
there
it
it
was
is.
sent by so-and-so whose calling is stake president.
Right. And this is a picture of one of the last meetings in Fairview where you have the residents who would like to see the temple built in a way that it meets community standards in green. And then you see all the LDS members, many of them wearing white shirts as they were told to do. So this website is for everyone. And if you go to the next slide, this email went out everywhere. Here's the same letter to the McKinney stake from the McKinney stake president. We see a letter from the Burleston stake. I feel like I need to have a map on my wall that shows Texas because I keep seeing all these, and I kind of hear, oh, that's an hour away or that's 100 miles away. So Dallas stake also received this, but Prosper received this. Remember, Prosper is where the temple was first announced by President Nelson, and then suddenly and inexplicably, name change, new site. Prosper Stake also received this. So everybody is being encouraged to go to McKinneyTexasTemple.org to get the latest skinny on the McKinney Temple. Skinny on McKinney. See what I did there?
Skinny on McKinney. There.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, it's the interesting thing about this letter is that, well, there's several things. First they say they're going to correct misinformation that's put out on social media. We're going to show that that's simply not true.
Is that our next slide while you're talking about it? I think it is.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's not. Okay, never mind. I do have one about misinformation. So go ahead, Landon.
Yeah. So misinformation is one of the points that they made in this, and the other one is, they keep saying that they want to keep everyone updated. Well, anyone who's been involved in these temples learns real fast. The church doesn't want to share any information. The only information they give is what they want people to know. They do not give any information about how they're going to pump water, what they're going to do for sewer systems. They haven't turned in the lighting plans yet.
Traffic
and they
studies.
won't give them the traffic studies they want to keep
like pulling
hidden.
teeth.
Yeah, people are asking for them and they will not turn them in. And then they want to say, oh, there's misinformation being put out there. Well, you're not putting out any information that anyone can even look at. So people are having to guess because of the fact that you are not putting out information. So, but when we go and look at the misinformation that they discuss, none of it really has anything to do with the temple meeting the codes. None of it has to do with how they're going to install the temple. The questions that the people are asking in the community that they want to know the answers to, that's not what's addressed.
And we'll show that. We'll go through what is addressed. Exactly.
Yeah, what is addressed is completely a different thing.
That's a really good point. Okay, let's look at our next slide. What I thought was really funny is that some people on some faithful sites seemed really suspicious of this website. So there's a post about, hey, everybody, come look at this post. This website is going to be amazing. And somebody writes, this website is not an official website of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for media inquiries about the McKinney Table, blah, blah, blah. Who is the creator of this website? They want to know. Who is it? What's going on? So their PR rep, Melissa McNeely, we've heard from her before as she warned people about what the residents might do with these meetings. Remember that tape recording? We have that on our Mormonish Podcast. But so she assures them it's fine, but people are still kind of suspicious. Like, what is this? Because if you do go to the website, and we'll show you in a minute, it clearly says it's not an official website of the church. So, but they definitely have they're promoting it through church channels, area rep, stake presidency. So everybody is going to trust it. But I just thought it was funny that a few people, a Mormonish viewer, sent these to me and said their own people don't believe what they're trying to say, which I thought was really funny. So I think our next slide might be my misinformation slide. Nope, this is the website, and there it says, this website is not an official website of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. For media inquiries, okay, so that means reporters and people who want real information, you need to visit the church newsroom. Now that's very interesting, right? They're saying, reporters, no, this website is just send us some talking points and some things we want to get across to our members, but for real news about the temple, contact this other site.
Yeah, and I'm guessing Newsroom Church of Jesus Christ.org does not have much information on McKinney Temple on it at all. And this is very concerning. When you put out as the area presidency that this is the website to go to get the answers, that this will clarify all of the misinformation, and then you say, oh, it's not an official website. We take no responsibility for anything said here. And the church isn't obligated by anything that we put out on this website. Again, nobody who can actually give a real answer is
above my pay grade.
Nobody who can speak for the church is speaking for the church.
Yep.
This tells you that they don't know what's going on, but they're going to clarify all the misinformation, but they're not free to really tell you. And they're not going to stand behind anything that they tell you.
No, well, it's plausible deniability, or as Bill Reel would say, deniable plausibility, meaning that this information is there. It may be helpful when talking to your neighbor to try to explain your point of view or the church's point of view, but a lot of it can't really be backed up by factual information. So the church is not going to stand behind it. So it's perfect, actually.
Yep, they do this. It's Scripture Central, we post what the church can't, because then they can deny everything, and we can put out misinformation and then say, oh, we're not responsible for that. And you look at this picture, see that little needle right on the top of the.
Oh, do you think that's
probably
what they were
about
take
15
off?
feet tall?
Oh my gosh! Well, take off the tiny needle.
They'll take the little needle off. That's what they're taking off, is that little needle. And then, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, they'll come and try to put an angel Moroni on top.
Because that's an integral tenet of the faith.
To get it right back up to the height that they wanted.
Okay, here's the slide that I was thinking was next. Oh my gosh, it's too late. And exactly what we focused on. The website says it is a means to correct misinformation in public social media discussions. And I feel like they're kind of talking about all of us. I mean, Mormonish covers it a lot. Nemo covers it a lot. The newscast covers it a lot. Other people have been talking about all the different temples, Heber, Cody, Bakersfield, Lone Mountain, and McKinney. And I just take exception to the word misinformation, because I feel like our misinformation is pretty accurate and fair and balanced. We'll kind of call it how we see it. So I think it's funny that what we're saying is being labeled as misinformation, where I actually feel the members are being taken advantage of in almost every city and not being given the full story, which isn't fair, because they're right there on the front lines with their neighbors. In fact, the meeting that was recorded, that was sent to us, where the Curtin McConkie representatives came down to talk to the stake leadership in the Fairview area. And we heard on the tape a stake level, sounded like a stake president maybe, said, what do I say to people? Why does it have to be so tall? I don't know what to say, right? And they gave them all these different answers. Is that the misinformation? Is it talking points to how to kind of mislead, and you're being misled as a member? That's the part I don't like.
Yeah, it's just like the missionary discussions, where you go and tell about the first vision, but you don't tell about the hat and the magic stone,
or tithing, or the priesthood ban, or polygamy.
Yes, over and over and over. The things that they don't say that they know are true, but they don't put out, which would greatly affect people's opinion. And that's the same thing they're doing here.
Yep. So this website, I'd encourage everybody to go there. It's really interesting. They have all kinds of sections on what is a temple and Relupa and a little fact sheet, all kinds of stuff there. But we decided we would focus on the Q&A, where they put out some questions and then they give some answers. And we, of course, feel the overarching plan is to give members talking points as they are asked these questions, these completely logical questions by people in the town. We also kind of feel that almost every one of these questions or talking points we have covered. It's a couple people have emailed and said, it seems like this website is addressing what Mormonish or Nemo or anybody says, because maybe this is what people are hearing. So it's interesting to hear their responses. And that's the second time that's happened, if that's the case. If you remember with Heber, remember that? We put out a bunch of statements and questions and looked into things. And then the church came out with something, remember that? A fact sheet that pretty much went down the line of everything we had covered. So I feel like maybe people in the area are getting wind of some of our questions or concerns, and now they're going to be answered here. So we're just going to go through and let you guys make up your mind. So do you want to take that first one, Landon?
Yeah.
First
so
question.
these are the Q&As that they ask. This is the misinformation that they're trying to clarify. Again, nothing clarifies anything specific about this temple being built and it's following the codes. Nothing specific on that at all. No details, no drawings. This is straight up Q&A talking points. Number one, why are temples?
Can I just say quickly, even though this is McKinney, I feel this is the church's point of view in every city for every temple. It's very generic, like you said, Landon, and it could apply to all the temples, I believe.
Yes, it could. Why are temples important to Latter-day Saints? For Latter-day Saints, temples are the most sacred places of worship. We believe they are literally the house of the Lord. We learn things in temples we cannot learn anywhere else, and we make promises in temples we cannot make anywhere else. It's where we get closer to God and His Son, Jesus Christ. Everything we do in the temple takes us back to our Heavenly Father's plan for us and the atoning sacrifice of His Son, Jesus Christ. Temples are a place for learning instruction on how to be better husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, children of God. They are a place where sacred covenants are made, such as marriages. We believe marriages performed in temples may endure beyond the grave and last forever. Worship in temples is different than what we typically see on Sundays in our chapels. In fact, temples are closed on Sundays. There are no large congregation meetings in temples, as it is only used for sacred ceremonies that involve a limited number of people.
There you go.
These houses of the Lord also serve as sacred spaces for the community in which they are built. They elevate the quality of the local environment and are appreciated by the communities where they are built. Well-kept, beautiful, well-manicured landscaping, quiet, contemplative spaces that is available for anyone to enjoy.
No, that's very misleading.
That's a complete lie. That's what that is.
I will say that we went and visited the Provo Temple with a friend who was in from out of town, and it was on a Sunday. Am I correct in remembering this? It was on a Sunday. And most of it was firmly gated shut. Like there was a little bit of a park area beside it, but everything else, we just kind of walked around the gate and we kind of pointed inside. But I think you, Landon, before you kind of made a list of the kind of people that can't get onto the grounds, into the temple. It's pretty funny. I mean, it's as minute as taking a sip of tea, right? And you go into the temple. We're talking about their own members.
You can't, if you drink tea, if you drink coffee, if you masturbate, if you don't pay 10% of your income to the church, if you don't attend all your meetings, if you don't tell the truth, or maybe tell a half truth, you're not supposed to go there. So most of the people making this website obviously would not be allowed to go there because it's misleading. So they're trying to have it both ways here. They say, oh, only a limited number of people. That's correct. A very small portion, about 25% of the number that they're claiming as LDS in the area will be able to go to this building.
Right.
And then they say they serve as a sacred space for the community in which they are built. Okay, you're going to try to expand that and say, oh, they're built in the community. It blesses the community. You get to go to a temple wedding and sit outside
Mhm.
and look at the beautiful trees while your friend is inside because you're deemed not worthy to go inside the temple. The only people who can go in the temple are Latter-day Saints who have a temple recommend. So
Right.
to say that these are available for anyone to enjoy is just simply not the case. It reminds me of the movie that we watched, Return of Elder Pingree, when he
Uh,
went to the temple in South America. And as he walks in, he's met by a man asking, "Who are you? You can't bring your camera in here."
oh yeah.
And was immediately
Very aggressive.
turned away. Yes.
Yeah.
So to say anyone is welcome there is simply not true. Yes, they might open the grounds and say you can walk around the parking lot and around the trees and the bushes, um, and try to make that claim, but the community does not go to the temple. It simply is not available. Anyone is not able to go inside the building and enjoy it in at any point. Anyone who's if you're a homosexual, if you are, I mean, it goes on and on. There's an entire list of everybody who's excluded from this space. So to try to make it sound like everyone is welcome at the temple is just simply not true. Try going past the front desk and you'll see how welcome you are.
Well, now we do know, remember when we did report on this, that some members in Vegas of the city council were allowed to go past the front desk on a special tour to kind
Yes,
of get them on board with the temple, which is
being
very funny.
escorted. Yes,
Yes,
that's
being escorted. But no, you're right. And it's funny because it was funny to see when we were working with the Heber residents, once they finally understood who could and couldn't go into a temple, because they thought it was like a church. And then I remember one day one of them called me and they said, this is like a private club, isn't it? They said, even their own members can't go inside, can they? I said, that's what we've been trying to explain to you. Yes, it's a very limited of members because the requirements are so ridiculously, stringent, can even go inside. So it's funny to see the residents realize what it really means. And that a lot of people, the idea of tending the temple is waiting outside while some people go inside. And that's happened to all of us and continues to happen. I saw a funny post on Reddit the other day where they said starter pack for somebody waiting outside the temple. Like somebody should leave snacks and drinks under the bushes for people that have to stand outside. They're in the sun and they're like, what's that? Somebody left me a Diet Coke, because we all have to stand outside. I thought that was cute. So,
and I've been to the temple 100 times or
yes, you
so,
have.
and to say that it's where you learn to become better husbands and wives, I can't think
Yeah.
of one thing in the temple. I mean, yeah, you make a covenant that as a wife that you will follow whatever your husband tells you to
This
do.
is true.
And as
Yes,
a
this is
husband,
true.
you say you will do whatever God tells you to do. Of course, God is the church. So whatever the church tells you to do, how that makes you a better husband or wife just by covenanting to obey the church, but everything ties you to the church. But I wanted to bring up one scripture here because they say that you can't do the temples, we cannot learn anywhere else. We can't make promises in temples we can't make anywhere else. That's because you've made the rule that you can't do it anywhere else. You could make these covenants anywhere you wanted, but it's their doctrine, so granted. But what does Acts say about the temple? Acts 17, verse 24. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands, as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things. So God doesn't dwell in temples, is what the scriptures tell us. But it'd be interesting to see where in the scriptures God uh, dwells in the temple, because we found multiple scriptures where it says he does not dwell
Multiple.
in temples made of
Yeah, that's
hands.
true. And that specific one was sent to me by one of our Cody residents. And they said, how do you justify or explain this? It so clearly says he does not dwell in a temple made by the hands of man. And yeah, there's just,
But I want to point out that this isn't about the doctrine. They can believe whatever they
yes,
want.
yes, they can.
We believed it as
Yep.
well. But the bottom line is what's in red there. to say,
It's
oh, it's
not.
available to everyone, but then say, oh, there's just a small number of people who come. They're trying to make it sound like, oh, it's not going to be a traffic problem or anything because there's not large groups that come, but everyone's welcome and it'll bless the community. So everyone will want to come. But we all know it's a limited number of people, limited by temple recommend, and that the community at large does not participate. They get to go in for a brief tour before they dedicate the temple. Once it's dedicated, you are not allowed in. And if your friends are married there and they invite you, you get to sit outside and wait for them to come out. You don't get to participate in the ceremony at all.
Yep, that's the reality. Absolutely. I think there's another section to this why our temple is important. Nope, we'll just go on to number 2. So number 2 is, from his installation as church president, Russell M. Nelson has announced more temples to be built, like many more than any other president. How does the church respond to feelings that too many temples are being built and are unwelcome in many communities? That's an interesting one. So they answer by saying, unlike the thousands of chapels, 21,000, there are only 350 temples operating, announced, or under construction worldwide. And we should point out there are so many more announced than are under construction, right? Like we have a chart. There's like, it's ridiculous. Other prophets, they would announce, they would be built. President Nelson just announces and announces and announces and announces. And most of them have not even started construction yet. Probably because as they talk about delays, right? What could be causing those? All right. So in red, it is true that the construction of temples has accelerated in recent years. Yes, it is. 168 new temples announced in the past 6 years. The purpose of building more temples is to make them more accessible to members. Now, this is very interesting. This is something we've only started hearing as a reason. Do you agree with me here, Landon? Like we've just started hearing these at the town meetings where they're saying, you know, we've got to be closer so our kids can drive there to do baptisms for the dead. We have to be available for all the people that want it. I didn't really hear accessible pushed as much as it is recently.
Well, and accessible makes sense, like one per state or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you're saying it can't be more than 30 minutes away, that, you know, we all grew up with temples more than 30 minutes away, and I live in Utah. So,
and you live in Utah. Well, look at Prosper. They were thrilled when the temple was announced. Then the temple was moved, and the state president had to send out a letter saying, oh, I know we're going to have to go farther and drive farther. We can't understand the purposes of the Lord or whatever, you know. So accessible to one person means not so accessible to another person. So that's a strange justification. All right. In red, and I'm putting them in red. This is not in red from the church. These are the talking points I thought were important. Every time a new temple is announced, Latter-day Saints living in the area are thrilled that they will no longer need to travel long distances to attend the temple. Now, I don't really know about that, if they are thrilled. I have gotten a hold of like meeting minutes from high council meetings or bishopric meetings where there is a demand based on what the temple needs put on the ward, where it says, you know, agenda item, we need 80 more people to go work in this temple here in Utah. And the bishopric members are saying, how are we going to do that? I just saw one today where a ward needed 20 people a week or a day to clean the temple. Anyway, these ridiculous numbers at late at night, you know, and they wanted couples to take turns, and the ward was panicking. We've got to get people out to clean the temple. I don't know if thrilled is the word. On the surface, maybe excited. The idea used to be that when enough members were in an area, they were blessed with the temple. It meant that the church was growing, that members were doing missionary work, that the faith was thriving. That's what it meant. It doesn't mean that now. They will put a temple pretty much anywhere, almost a Hail Mary temple, right? And hope for the best. And I feel like some wards, some stakes feel really strapped when a temple comes in, especially like in Utah, where they're so close together. And you hear that workers from one temple are now going to another temple. And where does that leave that first temple? Have you heard similar things like that?
Yeah, and I think everyone, it used to be that people were thrilled because they weren't they were fairly rare
uncommon,
to get
yeah.
one. It was uncommon to get one. now I think, people are listening for their town and then they go, oh, we get a temple. But then the logistics starts to hit. And I remember, I grew up right here in Davis County, and we always had to go to Weber County to go to the temple. And they finally built one in Bountiful, but we were still in the Ogden district, so we still went to Weber County. And then they announced the Layton Temple, which Layton is the largest city in Davis County, so why it didn't have one to begin with. And 6 months later, they announced the Syracuse. So Layton Temple is 7 minutes from my house. And now they build Syracuse, which is 5 minutes from my house.
Is it closer on the freeway that they built through your
that
backyard?
They built, yes. But
yes, you can get there much faster.
2 minutes closer. And this was within 6 months. And you're going, they haven't even built the one 7 minutes away. Now they're announcing one 5 minutes away. There's not a lot of excitement when they're being built that close together. And I know you talked to family recently who said, oh my gosh, what's that over there? And you said the Landon Temple. And they're going, Landon's getting a temple? Right. I mean, they're being built so everywhere in Utah that people can't even keep track of where they're being built. Yeah. But to me, again, this point right here where they say, how's the church respond to feelings that too many temples are being built and are unwelcome in many communities? Well, there's 21,000 chapels. Is everyone fighting the chapels being built? No. Why are people upset about the temples in their community? They don't go there. They don't know what's in them. They don't care, other than the fact that you're plopping them right in the middle of their neighborhoods and you're building them 3-4 times what the zoning codes are allowed for. They're unwelcome because they don't belong where you're putting them. As long as you put them where they they belong, or if you meet the codes like the chapels have to do of the residential areas, then nobody has a problem with it.
Exactly. Go ahead, finish.
It's just when you plop them in the middle of these neighborhoods and make them completely outsized to everything around them. That's where the problem comes in.
Yeah, that's true. And I have heard a story about a former prophet who was sort of pondering that idea that when they build stake centers and meeting houses, it seems just fine. But when they want to build a temple, that's when communities get upset. And this particular prophet was going, it must be the adversary. Yeah, it must be the adversary. That's it. It's the adversary. No, it's not. The temple is 3 times bigger than these other buildings, and they don't fit where you're trying to build them. But in their mind, it's the hard-heartedness of the community or the adversary, the devil working overtime. Instead of kind of looking at yourself and going, I wonder, where are temples accepted and where is there more of an issue? I think you could figure it out pretty quickly if you were self-aware.
Well, the devil is in the details, and the details are you're putting buildings in places where they're not zoned for. So who's the devil here?
Ooh, very good. All right, let's move on. Let's move forward. Oh, this is still part of number 2. Do you want to read that one?
The vast majorities of temple in the U.S. and around the world have been well received and are very much appreciated by local communities. There are only a handful of cases where some opposition has been expressed. In most cases, once explained and built, temples become beloved assets in the community. Example, Paris. The project began with much opposition and a neighborhood petition. Today, we only hear praises and compliments from the neighbors and city officials on what a great addition the temple is to their community.
As I understand it, they changed. They adhered to the codes.
Because they didn't have RLUIPA to fall back on. Right. And Paris said, you're going to meet our building codes.
Yep, and they did.
The Paris Temple, how tall is the steeple on the Paris Temple?
It has no steeple.
It doesn't have a steeple.
It doesn't have a steeple.
So they're giving a perfect example here of, Paris was because we adhered to their codes, and then they accepted it.
Yep.
Exactly what the people in Fairview are saying. Adhere to our codes and we'll accept it.
Yeah. Okay, I can't even listen to this next one. So I'm going to go like this while you read it for our viewers because I can't even hear it or look at it. So go ahead.
We work with community leaders, elected officials, developers, as well as our own church members in any community where a temple is to be built, so the temple will integrate harmoniously in the local environment and culture in terms of landscaping and design. We aspire to be good neighbors wherever we are.
Well,
Oh my goodness.
it's just not true. That's not true at all. And it's funny because the temple will integrate harmoniously in local environment in terms of landscaping and design. Okay, I'll give them that. Their landscaping usually does fit in, but what about the other 173 feet? It's a very misleading paragraph.
Well, to say we work with community leaders,
No.
let's take Fairview, for example. Fairview just said, this is way out of our zoning laws. Here's what we require. And what they do, they came in and said, we'll cut 15 feet off and screw you. We're going to sue you.
Yeah.
How is that working with community leaders? Prosper, the people thought it was going in there. So how they say they work with their own church members who are listening to this. Ask yourself this question. When did the church come to you and your local congregation and ask what you wanted to see in the temple that was going to be built in your area? Did they ask you about the height, about the walls, about the color, about the lighting, about the landscaping? No, look at Tulsa. They had a fast last week to soften the hearts of people, and they haven't even announced the site yet.
No.
So the church members don't even know where it's at, but they're fasting to change people's heart. How is that working with the officials? They're trying to hide where it's going so that nobody can have any say in it. Same thing happened in Heber. They came and said, we want to work with you. The people said it's too high, and they said, screw you. We'll sue you if you don't let it.
Sue you. I like how you said that.
Working with community.
Cody too. Yeah.
I will agree they work with elected officials. And Cody, they made sure that they got a member on the
P&Z board.
PZ board just before it went. In Vegas, they made sure that every elected official got $10,000. Yeah, they're working with the elected officials where they can manipulate them, but they're not doing it ethically. Fairview is one of the few places where they have not been able to pay $10,000 to each of the elected officials and change their mind. And that's what you get when you have an ethical city council that works with them. We saw
Fairview.
We saw United Methodist Church, how they worked with the bell tower. They spent 9 months working. They came and said, here's what we want to do. How can we do it? What are the codes? What do we have to do? Who do we need to talk to? The church came in and they come in with their lawyers, and that's it. Who is working with the community? Who that they are sending can even work and make a change to a temple or a design or incorporate it.
No decision makers ever in the room. All the residents across the board have said, why does everybody keep saying it's above their pay grade? When are they going to send somebody that can make a decision, or is their pay grade? And I said, that person doesn't exist. Everybody is just a lower level management. Nobody can. They're just there to give lip service. That's it.
You're the mayor of the town, and they don't even bother to send anyone who can. You're supposed to take your time to meet with someone who doesn't even represent the church and can't make a decision. Heck, we just saw Zelensky from the Ukraine shows up in Salt Lake, and he doesn't even get to meet with the upper level. He met with Cook, who's what, apostle number 7? And he's the leader of a country. This is not working with community. This is them imposing their will on the community using lawyers and using laws that they force through in Congress. And that's what it is.
We warned everybody to turn the volume down. We're starting
only to number 3.
Are we only at number 3? Okay, we got to speed this up. Go ahead, Landon. Read as fast as you can.
To what do you attribute so much opposition to your temple building program?
These are talking points. These are leading the witness.
Yes.
Because a member is going to go, opposition? Yeah, there is a lot of opposition. I'm being oppressed. I mean, seriously, it's just feeding these ideas to people.
Yeah, and the Fairview people are saying, where are you going to tie in your sewer system? How are you going to do that? Is that going to be sewer? Are you going to have to put in a septic tanks?
Right. In which case you have to go to Allen to talk
about
that.
Where are these answers?
Not oppression. These are practical questions from people in a town. This is not opposition.
This is the questions the people of Fairview are asking are the zoning questions.
Yeah.
They don't care about your why you feel like there's opposition to your temple program.
Or the adversary or anything
They
like
just
that.
want to know, how are you going to comply with our zoning law?
It reminds me of Heber, how we kept talking about the water all the time, the massive amount of millions of gallons they were going to have to pump away from this land. We had water people on Mormonish. The residents tried to talk to the city council and nobody seemed to care. They just said, oh, it's opposition. Oh, it's the adversary. Oh, it's your hard heart. And the residents were like, no, it's the gallons of water. You need to look into that. So I don't know what's happening with that, but it is funny. They see it as opposition. It's not. It's a legitimate, intelligent questions about process, procedure, and water, septic,
and because
traffic,
everybody
normal
in
things.
Heber was LDS, they just said, well, we just trust, the church told us it wouldn't be a problem. We don't need to check into it. It's
That's
our
true. The
church.
church
They
put out
told
a
us it
fact.
wouldn't be a problem.
The church put out a fact that said water wasn't an issue. So, I mean, and I don't know what they think now, but anyway, it's an example of calling something that's normal due diligence opposition.
Yes. Yep. So they say opposition might arise for two reasons. There might be misinformation or misunderstandings about what a temple is. Once neighbors understand that a temple doesn't bring large crowds, that it has little impact on vehicular traffic, the property will be well maintained and beautify the community, these objections typically disappear. Discussions around the
I have to say, I've never heard any of the residents we work with say, I don't understand what goes in there, what goes on in there. I don't want it to be built. No one has ever said that.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's all the other stuff, the sewage, the traffic, the height, the light,
you're blocking it. You're taking our night skies away. This is what it is. And it's always their fault. It's a misinformation or misunderstanding.
Yes.
If they're not, there's no misunderstanding. They know it's 173 feet tall and 62 feet tall. They know that. And they're saying that's not allowed. That's not a misunderstanding. No, I think the misunderstanding is from the church members that you have to comply with their building codes if you want to build in their city. The second, discussions around the potential impact of the building in terms of obstructing views, height, and light. These things are typically discussed with local authorities. We always follow the law and zoning requirements. Reasonable adjustments are considered.
My eyes are crossing. I'm not even kidding.
Opposition to our temple really comes from a vocal minority. Yes, those who live around it and have to see it every day, representing just a handful of more than 150 temples currently under construction. But wow, we follow the laws and zoning requirements. Okay, zoning requirement, 35 feet with, and they'll allow you to go to 68 foot with a steeple. You came back at 65 feet and 173 feet. How does that meet the zoning requirements? Las Vegas, Tuesday, they're voting to rezone the area because the temple can't be built in the area that it's in. So what they do, they paid $10,000 to all of the city council people so that it could be rezoned. So they could. Of course, they have to meet the zoning requirements because they can't build a temple without a building permit. But Heber, what they do, an LDA, they had to bypass the law to get it in. Dark skies, they had to redo all the laws for night skies in Heber County to get around this. Do they obey the law? Of course they do. Do they manipulate the law? Absolutely, they manipulate the law. They send in their lawyers. They know these communities can't put don't have billions of dollars like the church does to fight it. And so they manipulate the law. They pass laws through Congress, RLUIPA, which was a complete manipulation of Congress. They were told it was there to allow churches to not be discriminated against. And here they are wielding it and just knocking people down. That's the truth of the matter here. So you can sit and say it's legal. It's our First Amendment right. When you have billions of dollars, you can do a lot of things that aren't right. And that's exactly what the church is doing.
No, that was a good rundown. And I would add Cody to that, where the city planner, who is LDS and Freedom of Information Act, revealed emails and things that months prior to the temple even being announced, he was making code changes within the city and pushing them through the planning and zoning board so that everything would be ready when the temple was announced. So yes, you could say they do follow these zoning codes, but they've usually been manipulated behind the scenes well in advance. And that's just part of the playbook.
And in Fairview, they are not meeting the zoning requirements. That's why
No.
it's being rejected.
Yep.
Their argument's going to be, well, RLUIPA lets us ignore every zoning.
Yes.
They're basically saying there are no rules that apply to us because we're a church.
And that's
we can
not
do
true.
whatever we want.
Right. RLUIPA does have protections that a town does not have to like put up with some insane zoning, differences there. And that's what this is. This is
And so what's the church do? They say the mass of our walls and the height of our temples are part of our worship, right, which is manipulation of the law. Every person that's been a member of this church knows for a fact that those are not important criteria for a temple. And they just gave us an example on number 2, Paris, France. We didn't put a temple. We obeyed the zoning code, and we all love the temple and go to the temple in Paris. Do the same thing here, and then use this as a success story.
Paris. I know.
But they're not going to do it. They're going to sue.
There you go. All right. Number 4. Do you feel the church, with its significant temple building program, is being discriminated against? And again, here's sort of a talking point placed into the minds of the faithful LDS. Are we being discriminated against? Yeah, I think we are being discriminated. Hey, did you know we're being discriminated against? That's how that reads.
The mobs are coming, just like they always have.
That's right. The hard heart. Yeah. These points, these are to manipulate members, and I take exception to that. So the answer to this is federal law allows churches to construct sacred buildings. We ask to be treated fairly. So again, members are going to go, hey, we're not being treated fairly. These are just talking points. And overall have experienced success with relatively low conflict in most temple approval situations. Well, that might have been in the past just because there wasn't an avenue for people to understand what was going on. But if you look at all recent temples, Tulsa is a perfect example, right? We were going, what's going to happen with Tulsa? We don't know. We don't even know where it's going to be. But like you said, Landon, already a fast for, hardened hearts and possible opposition and delays. That's what it said in the letters to all the states. So it's coming. It's a tidal wave. But anyway, this again refers to RLUIPA. And it's true that law was created and passed by, introduced by LDS senators to stop discrimination, to be used as a shield for churches. But now the LDS church using it as a sword to try to beat down towns. And we've talked about that over and over. So I think we can go on to the next one on that. But again, just my point is these are talking points to kind of put that into somebody's mind. We're being discriminated against, and we might not be treated fairly.
I want to point out again here, are we being discriminated against? We ask to be treated fairly. Okay, let's look. Heber, you changed the laws. They gave you an LDA. Nobody else got an LDA.
No.
After 20 years, you changed dark sky. Nobody else has been able to change dark sky. Is that being treated fairly, or is that being treated with
preferential
treatment, which is not allowed by federal law to allow one religion a preference that another religion does not get. In Nevada, as we said, they changed the zoning, the definition of a zoning so that they could build a church in there. How are they being discriminated against? Everyone's changing the laws to accommodate them, and they're claiming discrimination simply because some people in the towns are saying, we don't want our government to change the laws that everyone else has had to live by in all this time. You're giving them preferential treatment, and to build a church 4 times, 3 times bigger than all the other churches in town is preferential treatment. And RLUIPA does not allow you to give preferential treatment to one church that you don't give to the other. So if you give 173 foot here, every other church can build that tall.
Every single one. Yeah. And that's happening in Heber. They did overturn all the ordinances in dark skies for the church. And now you've got a golf course development or resort coming in saying, hey, you did that for the church. Hey, we want this high. We can have
we want a 70-foot clubhouse. Yep. So. Okay. Number 5.
Number 5. Is it your turn to read? Yes, I think it's yours.
Oh, okay. The church often seeks changes to zoning guidelines, and if there is pushback, appears to threaten litigation based on the grounds of discrimination.
Appears? I can show you the freaking headlines.
They did sue in Cody. They did threaten in
Fairview.
Nevada. What was the last thing they said in the P&Z board? We can't afford another lawsuit. That was what they said. They were scared to death of a lawsuit. They've threatened in Fairview. They've threatened Heber, they didn't have to threaten a lawsuit because
it's an all LDS council.
everybody on the board was LDS. So
yeah, but everywhere else.
Temple engineers and architects seek to comply with all laws, including those regarding lighting and land use. Again, this temple was designed before the site was even built. How did they know what heights they could build to if they didn't even know what city they were going to be building and what zone they were going to be building for?
No, and in fact, as we reported in our other podcasts, when they were going to build in Prosper, and it seemed like the town had pretty strict ordinances with no precedent of anything else being built outside that limit, they went to Fairview and they said, you have looser ordinances, meaning there was wiggle room. There were other buildings that were perhaps, we think, misunderstood, but perhaps a precedence of a higher spire. So this is what they're looking at. Smaller towns, locations where there's some wiggle room in the town ordinances and codes, and there's something else that may have been allowed to be built that's a little taller.
We want to be good neighbors and bless the community with a building that will beautify and be in harmony with the neighborhood where it is built. How is something 4 times higher than the houses that it surrounds
it's just
in harmony with the neighborhood?
It's ridiculous.
They came in the very first meeting that they said, hi, good neighbors, let us introduce ourselves. Here's our lawyer who says he'll sue you if you try to fight our temple. How is that?
Remember the reaction of the people? We had like a recording from somebody in their purse, and they said that, the DOJ, if you don't comply, will sue. There was this audible, what? I mean, they were just like, are you kidding me? People are not happy.
While municipalities have laws that may limit a structure's height for residential neighborhoods, state and federal laws grant religious organizations flexibility for houses of worship like our temple. Flexibility does not mean you have no rules. There's no laws for you. You can do whatever you want to.
Yep.
But that's the way the church interprets it. Anything we want goes. Discussions regarding variances are a normal and expected part of this type of process.
And that's just put people's minds at ease because they're hearing these things about, oh, wait, it wasn't passed and back and forth. Don't worry. These are normal procedures. Nothing to see here.
And it's true that variances are a normal and expected part of the process, but so also are having your petition rejected. Having your application rejected is part of the normal process as well. And being told you don't comply with the codes, come back and here's what you need to do to comply with the codes. That's a normal part of the process. What is not a normal part of the process is suing every city that you go into that says we want you to comply with our laws.
Yeah, and they really tipped their hand in Cody when they pretty much said, I don't think your city can afford the litigation that we're going to bring. I mean, they alluded to that kind of thing that will bankrupt your city and the several lawsuits, and they're still in the middle of things. So yeah, they definitely
I'm sure they're telling
their power.
I'm sure they're telling Fairview the same thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they are too, behind the scenes. Yeah.
Many areas where temples are constructed have other places of worship on the same street or nearby. This is a common occurrence.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. But they're half the size or a quarter of the size.
A quarter of the size.
Of these buildings that you are building.
We're going to show you some pictures in a minute here of the stake center versus the temple that's going to go right next door to it. So, all right, number 6. Oh, I love this AI. It's so fun. Church leaders have mentioned the building itself is now this one is really loaded. I take full responsibility for this one right here. Mormonish. We take responsibility for this. Church leaders have mentioned the building itself is subordinate to what transpires inside the building. Yes, they have. And we found, with the help of Mormonish viewers, those quotes and videos. Why does the church hold so tightly to square footage or location or even the height of the spire? The new steeple doctrine. For members of the Church of Jesus Christ, temples are places of reverence and respect, purposely distinct from other places so that people can focus on their relationship with the loving Heavenly Father. These beautiful structures facilitate something personal and heavenly that include architectural features. Spires that, should we say it together? Lift our eyes heavenward. Unique lighting, Christ-centric symbolism, all reflecting the reality that this is the house of the Lord. As with synagogues or mosques or temples or other faiths around the world, temples are places where men and women can find peace and purpose in a world where we may face uncertainty and conflict. Okay. We take great care in working with leaders in the local community from location to design. There is a process. We follow that process. Oh, again, Landon's like shaking his head. He's speechless. No, my AI have to explain, because I kept thinking they just keep, that one recorded meeting that we got where they said, Jesus, the Lord, is on the second floor or up high, right? That's where he dwells. So I'm just picturing him having fun, leaping around from spire to spire. He dwells up top. That's exactly what it is. But yeah, this last sentence, there's a process. We follow it. We work with leaders in the local community from location to design. Never, the town does not know where the temple will be until weeks before it comes in. The people don't know. Nobody knows. The members don't even know. No one has any idea, and that's by design, so that it can just get in there as fast as possible.
Process.
That is the process before anyone can
3
mobilize.
Weeks. 3 weeks before they're going to go for the permit, they announce the location, so nobody can have any say in it. That's exactly what they're intending to do. And the design, ask Fairview, when did the church come and ask them about location? When did they come and ask them about design parameters?
It was that first meeting.
The first meeting, and they didn't ever ask them. They said, here's what we're giving you.
Here it is. That's
they never asked. Compare that to the United Methodists, where they came and said, what can we do? How high can we build? What area can it be? And they said, you need to look at the shadow that you're casting. You need to look at how loud the bell towers are going to be. You have to look at how high. This is as high as we will allow you. We might give you a few feet on the roof. Had they come and said, what are your requirements? They would have laid out, this is the requirements for height. This is the requirements. And they would have told you, but you didn't ask, you didn't communicate. This is an absolute lie.
It is. And think about Fairview, or was it? Yeah, it was Fairview, where the letter came out from the PR person that said, hey, there's a temple coming to your town. It's going to be close to you within a certain number of feet. It's going to be 2 stories. And it's
comply with all the codes.
Yeah. Completely not correct. And it tells me, I believe that this is by design, that it's kind of the stealth approach where you just quickly move in, announce it before any residents would be able to mobilize or to voice any kind of opposition, or just, wait a minute, hold on. Because we saw that in Heber, we saw that in Cody very quickly. Now, what was different in Lone Mountain and Fairview is that those guys right away, as soon as they saw that sign on their door, they Googled temple. They came across information, some that we had put out, some that others had put out, about this playbook, what happens, what to expect. They mobilized so quickly on the shoulders of Cody and Heber and what they had gone through before, the information they'd put out, that I think, was it in both cases, or at least Lone Mountain, where the church asked for they put off some of those initial meetings to give them a chance to mobilize. Do you remember that? Because they were kind of taken off guard by how quickly then the residents had mobilized.
Yeah, and this do I need to state the obvious? The question here was, why does the church hold so tightly to square footage or location or even the height of the spire? Where is the answer to the question?
Most of these don't really have an answer. That's the thing.
They didn't answer the question. They said the spires lift our eyes heavenward. Okay. Doesn't a 68-foot spire do the same thing?
So do the golden arches and the bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
That's right.
Every time I go through a drive-through, I find myself looking heavenward.
We all do it.
I don't know. It's so absurd. Okay. So we just thought one more time after this question where it says, so it appears that some church leaders may have said something about it not being so important on the outside, and they tried to answer it, but didn't. We just thought we'd play this one more time. And again, Mormonish viewers pointed both of these out to us, 2 separate viewers. We found the clips. We gave them to our friend Cultural Hall. He put them together. This is the most powerful thing I've ever seen.
And I think we should point out that what's on the website is not the official doctrine of the church.
It's not.
This is President Nelson
from
speaking
his mouth.
From his mouth. He is the prophet. Yep. He is the top dog.
Yeah.
I don't know who
Bednar.
else you go to. And Bednar, who is number 5, 6 to the top.
So you're right. It's directly contradicting what the website says. And the website's not the official.
When there's a contradiction and the one's not official, who do we listen to? I guess we have to listen to President
Nelson.
That's right.
So who's giving misinformation?
I hear people say, oh, that's a small temple. There's no such thing as a small temple. They're just temples. There's no such thing as small covenants or small ordinances. And see, that to me reflects this fixation on it's the building. Who cares what the size is if you have access to the same covenants and ordinances whereby we have a covenant connection with the Father and the Son?
We're so blessed to have temples. We'll have increasing numbers of temples as the church grows. But it's not the number, and it's not the location, and it's not the architecture. It's the ordinances inside.
Who cares what the size is? Who cares?
It's not the architecture. It's the ordinances inside. It's the ordinances inside.
It's the ordinances inside.
So good. Cultural Hall does such a good job. He's amazing. Check out all of his stuff. It's absolutely incredible. All right. Yep. We can never be reminded too many times of those words straight from the Lord's anointed.
Well, we're just correcting the misinformation on the website.
Yeah, that's all.
It doesn't, the steeple doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yep.
That we're simply making correction of the misinformation put out by the church, the local leaders on their church on this website. It's not endorsed.
Exactly. And again, I feel like they're copying us because we always talk about that video. We always talk about number 7, the Paris, France temple. I feel like they're going point by point through the things that we cover.
Is this mine?
I think you're up. Yeah.
Number 7, the temple in Paris, France, which opened a few years ago, doesn't even have a spire, one of 4 in the church. Is a spire critical to the structure? If not, why not comply with the local ordinance and lower the height? There are only very few exceptions. The spire is an important symbol that points us to heaven.
Oh, wait. We always have to say that together. That points us to heaven. Okay, there you go.
Temple structures are typically 30 to 40 feet high. Only the spire is higher. The spire needs to be consistent with the size of the building to provide a harmonious design. Temple structures are typically 30 to 40 feet high. How tall is this one? 60 feet.
Oh, you mean McKinney? Yeah, I was going to say,
the temple being
double what they're saying here. Double.
It is way larger than the typical, exactly what they're saying.
Yeah.
A spire doesn't create much obstruction to views. They are narrow in design.
Oh, come on.
This is not a narrow design. This is a tower.
It's a tower.
With a steeple on the top. The steeple is maybe 30, 40 feet. The rest is towers. Which do make a big obstruction of the views.
Right. And the body of it itself is 68 feet or whatever, and it causes a huge obstruction.
So I don't get what they're trying to say here. They just said Paris Temple doesn't even have one. And they say, oh, is a spire critical? Why not just adhere to the local ordinances? That's exactly what they did in Paris. They adhered to the local ordinances. They didn't put a spire on it. And it works.
Yeah, but you know what the secret is? Because they had to, I feel. And I've talked to Nemo about this in the UK and other places. They don't have RLUIPA, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Person. I always say incarcerated act. Anyway, they don't have that. They have zoning requirements that you have to meet. You don't get to claim this extreme religious exemption. So they have to follow those laws.
Yeah, exactly. But they're trying to make that just 2 or 3 back, they talked about how the Paris Temple had become a perfect example of how well this can work. And yet it adhered to everything that they're asking for in Cody. This temple right here could be built, or in Fairview, I'm sorry. This temple here could be built in Fairview tomorrow.
It could be.
30 to 40 feet without a spire. It complies with all the codes.
Yep. Had they brought that to that meeting instead of lopping off 15 feet, they'd be talking about the plans right now. They'd be taking it to the meeting and all would be good.
So I agree with this. Why not comply with local ordinances? They never answered the question.
No.
They simply made some statements that
again, talking
contradict what they're saying.
Statements, talking points. That's exactly right. All right. What about the lighting for the temples? For all new temples, You will be able to see the temple in dark as allowed by local code, but the light will not extend beyond our property limits. Now, this is true. It's not like a beacon. It's not like a lighthouse that goes out there, but you can see nothing else at night. It absolutely dominates the landscape. And imagine having this, like our friend Joel, 160 feet from your back door. And in one picture there, you can see two temples right next to each other. You really do see nothing else.
Yeah. What else do you see in that
Should we
picture?
sing that now? Blinded by the light.
That's right.
Wrapped up like, no.
In that picture, you see two temples, and you can't identify any other structure in that entire view.
No.
And this is the Salt Lake Valley. So there's all kinds of buildings in the Salt Lake Valley there that you can't see. So to say the temple does not extend beyond our property limits, they're lighting the structure so that it can be seen. They're not shining a light outside. They're shining it on so that it is seen from everywhere. And I can tell you, I can look out my window right now and see the Bountiful Temple, which is 15 miles from my house. Right now, I can see it.
A vampire could never live next door to the temple.
That's right.
It would never work. And I have to draw your attention to the one on the lower right. You can see the lightscape. The stars are gone. It's just the light. And again, I have to say, migratory birds, all kinds of creatures are negatively impacted by this kind of light at night. And it has far-reaching effects to the entire ecosystem. And these birds and animals can die when their rhythms are off like that. And that affects the entire ecosystem, the food chain, everything. I mean, look at that. The sky, there are no stars. And I always say that, you know what draws your eyes to heaven? Stars draw your eye to heaven. What can't you see anymore with this light of the temple? Stars. It's absolutely ridiculous.
100% agree.
Of course, you're a former scoutmaster and you love to take everybody out where the stars are just incredible. We really don't see that many stars here in Utah because there are so much light pollution.
No, one of the reasons that the church wanted you to go out and take the boys out was to get out in the outdoor and nature to see the stars, because when you look at the stars, you actually contemplate your role in the universe and all these other things. Looking at a big white building does not do what looking at the heavens and the universe does to you. Okay, number 9, if the church doesn't get what it wants, it threatens to sue using federal law. Is that accurate? Temple building is not about contention, but about connection. Our goal is to find solutions that are appropriate for the exercise of worship and that convey our wish to be a good neighbors.
Again, be a good neighbor.
Federal law in the U.S. allows churches to construct sacred buildings. We work together according to this law to build sacred structures in a way that is true to our beliefs and collaborative with our neighbors and friends. We only ask to be treated fairly and that our rights under the law be respected. Overall, we have experienced successes with relatively few misunderstandings or delays in most temple approval situations. We are grateful for people who make it possible for our members to worship in peace. Wow.
This is all starting to run together for me, but it really does remind me of that woman that got up at Lone Mountain. And she said, when you ask us, to have a lower steeple, you are asking us to choose between being neighborly and Jesus Christ. So it's not about being good neighbors. As much as they want to say it, they say it over and over in every meeting that we hear, every recorded tape that we get. They always say, from the bottom of our hearts, we just want to be good neighbors. That's what they say over and over. But that's not the case. It's their personal agenda. Right there it says, we need to be able to worship in the way that we are telling our members that we have to. And that's with a huge lit spire.
If I thumb back through these last 9, how many of those talked about federal laws allow us?
Yeah, that's the thing.
We're legally allowed to do this. Every one of their arguments, we want to be good neighbors. The law allows us to do this. In other words, we're going to use our legal channels to get this through. We see lawyer after lawyer after lawyer coming to every one of these towns. We've seen lawsuits filed. We've seen law firms representing and hired and lawyers coming into town to talk to when I say talk, they're basically telling them what's going to happen with legal. We see it in every single place. How many times have we seen them come in and actually sit down and actually work and try to resolve things like they're saying they did in Paris? Only why? Because they couldn't
They had
fight the
to.
law there. They had to. They're using their lawyers in the United States to fight this every tooth and nail, and every one of their answers has been about the law and their legal right. How they can say that they are not threatening to use federal law, they mention it in every one of their points.
Every single one. And remember again, that recorded meeting where somebody at stake level sent it to us in real time because, you know, they were, it was only for stake people. And the Curtin McConkie lawyer said, I wish I had RLUIPA for all the other buildings that I'm trying to build, you know, because that makes it so easy. I wish I had that to be able to push my agenda on this building through. But when it's not a religious structure, you can't use it. But this person admitted, I wish. It's so easy to manipulate with this law. I mean, he didn't say that exactly, but he said, I wish I had RLUIPA, implying that.
Yeah, he's saying, I wish I had a sword everywhere that I went, that I could
threaten
use.
everybody with. Yep, a flaming sword, a flaming RLUIPA sword. That's the next meme we need to make. So, okay, number 10. Oh, I love this one. Opponents say, is that us? Are we the opponents? I don't think we are. I want them to build a temple, but I want it to be the right kind of temple for everybody. Opponents say the temple is just too large. Why not modify the size based on local recommendations? How dare you call a town's zoning codes recommendations? Those are the town's codes, voted on, enforced by elected officials. They're not recommendations. That is insulting. Or input. The size of the temple is typically proportional to the size of the land on which it is located and meets the needs of church members in the area. Okay, I want to show this picture, which I've shown before. This is me taking this picture, standing on the sidewalk across the street from the Landon Temple, which is under construction. You can kind of see the two spires there on the right. You can see a front view, but I would like to draw your attention to the picture on the left, okay? The Landon Temple is a similar size to the McKinney Temple being built in Fairview, Texas. If you look down on the left by that little red triangle that I put there, that is a very large house, kind of on a hill, actually. It's a 3-story, I think maybe even 3.5 with a basement, with a walk-in basement. That is a large house. Look at the temple. Look how large that is. Do you see that scaffolding about halfway down? And it's kind of a white line right in the middle. If you look very closely, you can see a tiny little blob. You know, those are workers. Those are full-size human beings standing there. So to say that it's proportional to the land, look at this. And this picture doesn't even do it justice when you get up next to it. Like Landon mentioned, we took a family member over to it, a faithful member. We drove up and this person said, why does it have to be that huge? This is a faithful member, right? Obviously did not get the notification about the doctrine of the steeple. But this picture just floors me. And I can't even describe the size of this. And you laugh. You just laugh at how ridiculous it is. Anyway, going on, it says the temple incorporates local architecture and themes in its design. Okay, I've seen it try to do that. That's true. So it is complementary with the surrounding neighborhood. Again, look at this picture. Is this complementary for the other houses that are even smaller? That house in that picture is one of the larger houses right there. There are smaller houses. That said, we do work with local officials to determine what meets the needs of the church. And notice in all of these statements, it always says needs of the church first, doesn't it? It always talks about that, as well as the community. And that goes back to saying, we've made significant concessions. You are the applicant. You are, as I said, you come into my town. I can't do it as well as Bill Reel. He's like, you come into my town. You expect, again, you're the applicant. You're not supposed to be making concessions. The town is supposed to be working with you and showing you how you can fit into their community. The temple itself is built to the highest standards of construction. That could or could not be true. We do know that temples prefab are built in China and they are, shipped over here. And in the case of Cody, Wyoming temple, just set on a member's land. and sat there before the temple was even announced, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny here to say that that they work with local officials to determine what meets the needs of the church as well as the community. Okay, you went into Fairview. They told you, here's what meets our needs as the community. Please comply. And the church came back and ignored everything they were told.
Exactly.
How is that working with the local officials?
Yeah, you didn't read the sentence that says meets the needs of the church. And that's kind of in big letters. And then as well as the community.
As well as the
small.
community. Yeah. You could just put a period after church. They don't care if it fits the community. It only is if it meets their needs. So
yeah, that's right. They're not gonna back down. Okay, number 11. We're almost done with these. We did a good job.
How do you determine where to build temples? The president of the church ultimately decides the location of every temple. He takes into account a number of considerations, including places that are safe and peaceful and which are accessible to many Latter-day Saints. Typically, it's where did a member donate the land, so we don't have to pay for it,
build a
and then we're going to go ahead and do it there. But okay, great. That's how you determined it. I don't care where you build the temple as long as it complies with the zoning codes.
Yeah. But it seems like they decide ahead of time and they decide what it's going to look like. And then they just plop it somewhere.
Plop it down. Yep.
And we've heard this when we did our episode with Jason Palmer about Peru and the Peruvian temple. And he interviewed someone on the temple building project there for the Peruvian temple. And that person said, oh yeah, it's easy in America because we build in residential areas and it's really easy to just go in there and change the codes. He flat out said that. And then he was talking about how it was more difficult when you're dealing with a foreign country. But that is how it operates. That is the playbook.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think this is our last one, at least from the website. Number 12, would you say the church is a good neighbor? There's the word again. When it comes to building these temples, our goal is always that they will be well received and loved by the community as a beautiful addition to the local landscape. With temple construction, the church desires to be, should we say it together? A good neighbor. I feel like we're kind of on Mr. Rogers, although I love Mr. Rogers, right? Or maybe a State Farm commercial, right? Like a good neighbor, the LDS church is there, something like that. And welcomes any questions or concerns about the project. That is not true.
That's absolutely not true.
We desire to construct buildings that will be in harmony with their environment and convey beauty, harmony, and dignity. Again, we could go back to that picture. Absolutely not harmonious. It is dominating in a gargantuan way the environment. And we invite all to come and see the temple when it is open to the public prior to the dedication. True. And they seem to always hold that out like a carrot. You will be able to go to the open house for a few weeks ahead of time.
Where we'll try to convert you to our religion.
Yeah. No, the reason that I say, when I said that is not true, welcome questions or concerns, we have talked to enough residents who have gone to enough initial meetings to understand that they are just told what is going to happen. And if they do try to bring up questions, they are shut down very quickly, especially if you're a woman. We have a story from one of the cities where the residents group was predominantly really, really intelligent, smart, dynamic women who put together a lot of information very quickly about what was happening in the codes and the zoning and the traffic and water and all that kind of stuff. And they went to this first meeting at a stake president's house. And they said to us later, we were all asking questions and the men would not talk to us. The lawyers and the church leaders, they wouldn't address us. They kept looking around for where's a man I can talk to. And I said, well, that's kind of cultural. They're not used to, and all these women are like former CEOs. They're very intelligent, high-powered women. And again, they were not listened to at all. They were shut down. At the end of the meeting, it was like, oh, okay, that's enough. We're doing what we're doing. We heard that in Cody. We heard that pretty much everywhere, didn't we?
Yeah. And I think it's funny that they say that because people are going to these asking, go to Tulsa, say, where is the temple going?
Yeah.
There's a question. You welcome any question.
That's a great question.
Yeah. They welcome the question. They ain't going to answer it.
No.
But they welcome it.
Well, and their own members too. No members in
a member can't ask where is it going.
I would put a call out to any member in Tulsa right now to go and ask your leaders, can you tell us where the temple will be? We'd love to get started right now in support and being
We'd love to
excited
give
about
you-
the blessing.
We'd like to give our input as to where it
Yeah.
goes. We'd like to have some input on how
Yeah.
high and what it is, so we
Yeah.
don't tick off our neighbors. But is that going to happen?
No,
No, they do
It's a
not welcome
stealth
any
move.
questions. They don't
stealth move.
welcome any concern.
Yep.
They'll listen to your concern and say, "Oh, we had a good discussion about feelings,"
Yeah.
and then build
we're going to
whatever the
talk
hell
about
they
that
want.
pretty soon. Yeah. So this picture is the white shirts in Fairview. The members are told to show up en masse in white shirts. The picture on the bottom are the blue shirts in Lone Mountain, where the members are told to show up in blue shirts as a show of support for the temple. So this
Yeah,
is
they're
how you
such good neighbors. They ask people from hours away to drive
Yeah.
in to Fairview to show them what good neighbors they are, and
And I will tell you, this-
overwhelmed their.
This is how you tip your hand, and this is how you scare communities. When you descend like that, all dressed the same, it tips your hand. It's a peek behind the curtain as to what's really going on. And people are like, I had no idea. Who are these people? This is what we've heard in every single town.
Yep. Is it your turn?
No, I think it's your turn.
Oh. Seems the church is going to extreme measures when it comes to the cost to construct temples. Is this the best use of church funds? The center of our faith is Jesus Christ. Temples serve as an expression of our love for God and lie at the very heart of our connection to Him. We are very grateful to have the resources to build temples, as well as many other efforts that bless the lives of God's children. Yes, the church does have the resources to not only build temples, but to sue cities, because they're a tax-exempt organization who is allowed to evidently invest billions of dollars in the stock market and buy real estate and do it all at taxpayers' expense, not paying into any of these communities because they're tax exempt, while then threatening to sue them with those very same funds that they were able to grow tax exempt. So, yeah,
You agree.
church does have resources. Yep.
And there you go. Yep. That's a whole nother podcast right there. Good heavens. All right. The steeple controversy. I think we're done with that section of the website, aren't we? Okay. So the church has put out on this website part of it. And like I said, we don't have time to go through every part. I would encourage anybody to take a look. It's really interesting. But one of the big parts of the website is to show how it's really not that big, right? It's really not that big. It just isn't. So they say in the website, see how high the actual steeple of the temple will look from various locations nearby. This is a whole section. These conceptual images that we're going to show you show proper perspective, proportion, and scale. They were created using real photographs, U.S. topography from OpenStreetMaps, and satellite coordinate imagery from Mapbox. And this is not the picture from the website, but I want to show you, before we look at these pictures from the website, the church's website, unofficial website, what you can do with angles. This is an angle of a woman standing, taken from a certain way in which she looks way taller than a 3-story building. There are all kinds of things that you can do as far as manipulating images to make them look bigger or smaller or different than they really do. And so we looked through these images on the website and we thought, okay, this is interesting. We feel like there's something wonky about these, but we don't know. So we reached out to a former LDS temple architect, right? Who better than to talk to us about what these images mean? So let's go through these. And I think you probably you've kind of done a little more research on this. So I will let you take us through this. But this first image that they show, I titled it, "This does not look that bad after all, does it?" And what you see here is the stake center that's already on the adjacent lot on the left-hand side. You can see that. And then you see the church's rendering of the temple. Well, they look like they're the same size. It's not that big.
Yeah, exactly. And I will point out that the thing that the architect told me was, he said, first of all, these images were clearly built by probably the church's architect, because nobody else would have had the information to put these together that they used. He also pointed out, he said, that there was a lot of time put into these, but
Mhm.
in his opinion, they were very poorly done and with an agenda. He mentioned that he doesn't have all the data, but there were some tests that he could run on them to kind of determine whether or not they were right. He doesn't have all the information. So he said, I could be wrong on some points, but I'm not that wrong.
Right. And it's a possible way to look at it. So I think it's interesting right here where it says this view is 11 feet below the temple floor. Who takes a picture to show scale from 11, from below? That's
Well, what that's telling you is the temple is actually higher than the stake center. So
right.
just like we saw that picture with the girl
Uh-huh.
on the three, what they do, they took it from down low, facing
Yeah, so
up,
she
closer
looks,
into
yeah.
her, with the building further away, which made it
Exactly.
smaller scale. Exact same angle that you see right here. They took it from below, angled up with the church in the foreground, so it looks bigger than it is. The temple in the further view, just like that 3-story building, so it looks smaller than it really is.
And again, this stake center is the tallest religious structure in Fairview. This is it. They already have that.
That's correct. So one of the things the architect did, he drew this up for us and pointed out a few things. The first thing he said is that what you want to do is you draw an angle, and what you do is you can draw a line, and that's this black line here that's parallel to the ground that they're sitting on, and so that's what the black line is. And then just like we all learned in beginning art, you got a vanishing point, and you can draw the lines to the vanishing points. So we know that the steeple on the stake center is 68 feet tall. How tall is the steeple on the temple? It's 174 feet tall. Basically, if you looked at that, if that temple was sitting at the same place where the stake center is, it goes completely off the picture. You can see the pink line there that goes up to 174 feet. That is where if you had the temple in close, that's what it would look like compared to the stake center. So you can take a line then and you can draw it to the vanishing line, and that gives you everything along that line is approximately that height as it gets further in the distance. So how tall does that temple look in the background? Well, it's a little taller than 68 feet, but is it 174 feet? If we take the vanishing line and put 174 feet in there, we can trace it back, and we can see that temple does not go up to 174 feet, which is how you would typically line one of these up.
So you're saying that the scale that was chosen for this picture, even though it's being manipulated, even the scale isn't accurate. Even with the manipulation they're trying to do, they didn't make it as big as it should have been.
Correct. And he goes on to say, here's what it should look like at 174 feet. Now, he drew in this kind of, gray building. Of course, that building's turned a little bit.
Yeah.
But at that angle, we would expect the spire to be up around that location if it was really 174 feet tall, based on the vanishing point and the scale.
And that dotted pink line is what I can't get over, because if it really were right next to the temple, look how massive that is.
See how much
that
taller
is
it is.
3 times taller than the stake center.
To try to say it's really not that big by showing it in comparison, but it's further back so that it doesn't look as big.
That's 7th grade perspective. Come on. We know how that works. 7th grade art.
He also mentioned, you can see in that upper picture, you see that line that's angled back. He said that they seem to have the temple back. If you look, there's kind of the yellow square, and in the middle is the temple. That's where they have the temple. That's generally where the temple is going to be located.
Okay.
But based on his estimates, where they've located the temple is actually in that black area, which I don't even believe is on the church's lot anymore, because they bought that whole lot and gave it away.
So the schematic, they even have it way back, and it's not even to the right height.
They've pushed it back a lot further than it should be, which is why it looks so much smaller. Yeah.
Because he drew all the lines. He used the point. Okay, that makes sense.
Exactly.
And again, it's probably, let's go back to the first one really quick. The one where it shows the 2D. There we go. Okay. So I want everybody to notice, you can hardly see the temple in this picture.
Mhm.
And why is that, Landon?
Well, it's blocked by the trees.
Those massive trees. Now we know how tall the roof line of the temple is, right? It's 60.
It's around 60 feet.
60 feet. And I know there's a little bit of a, a wonky angle there, but there are some massive trees there. So in this picture, I glance at it and I'm like, oh, that's totally obscure. It's way back there. It's in a grove of trees. It's very short. You're right. Nothing to see here. But our architect pointed out, he did, looked at Google Maps and Google Earth himself. He's like, I don't think there are any trees. Can we look at that?
We can look at that.
I thought was funny. So here it is. So the first picture on the top left is the picture from the church's own Google address. If you look up that stake center, this is the picture that's there that the church has put there. And then I had one of the residents just drive by. You can see it's kind of a whoop drive by. And there do seem to be maybe some bushes or some trees over there, but it certainly isn't the kind of tree that's going to be so big as to completely obscure those massive temple walls.
And I looked at this from above, and those trees are further back, and we're not even sure those trees will still be there because that's where the parking lot's going to go.
Right.
Now you can argue, well, they're going to plant trees, and in 20 years, that's what it'll look like.
But the original plan doesn't have those kind of trees on it. Not like that.
I'm just saying someone could make the argument that we'll plant trees and it'll look like that. But it's clear what they're doing. They're attempting to obscure the temple with the trees in order to make it look like it's not as imposing and as big. And remember, this is taken from 11 feet below the temple. Right. So you're actually looking up. What happens when you're below a tree looking up? It takes your eye heavenward. Yeah. And when you take a picture with the lower you are, the taller the tree, the more it obscures. Take the opposite. If we were to be 11 feet higher, we'd be looking down and we'd see a lot more temple. Yeah, so the angle that they're taking these at seem to be intentionally taken to always make the temple look smaller than it really is.
And it really is an issue because, we've heard about children being sent out, to canvass and to talk to residents. And it's a very heated issue, and so that's very difficult for kids to be in that scenario. And we've heard reports of kids saying, well, it isn't very big, and other people saying that. And that's just, I'm sure the kids don't understand what they're saying, but for adults to say that, it's very insulting. The residents know how big it is. They understand how big it is. This is why they're trying to protect their town and their zoning ordinances and codes. And this is something that one of the Fairview residents who does this for a living, I'm not sure if he's an architect or a civil engineer, I can't remember, but he made this to scale of the size of the temple. You can look over to the left and you can see the stake center. There it is, the teeny tiny little white tower there. In the background, you can see the water tower, which is something they also compare it to. They go, there's a water tower in the town and I put up with that. Why not a temple? I mean, look at the size of that temple. I don't think it's so hard to describe unless you're actually seeing something like when I stood right in front of the Landon Temple, when you stand in front of the Layton Temple, it's just jaw dropping.
Yeah. Extremely large. And you can see the scale of that when we're looking at it from above. Mm-hmm. And you can see the whole temple, not looking at it from below with trees in front of it. Yeah. They did go on, and you can go on the website, and they took all of these pictures, Mm-hmm. Oh, here we are 45 feet below temple on the main level and a mile away. Oh, look, you can barely see it. Again, you can always find an angle which you can't see it. I went over to the Layton Temple and just ran a couple of tests. I literally could move 2 feet and stand in front of a tree and I couldn't see the temple. I'd then move over about 10 feet, clear the tree, and the temple was sticking way up there. Think about if there's an apartment building across the street. From the backyard of that, if I stand up next to it, I can't see the temple because I'm so close to the building. But as soon as I go to the front yard, it's immense. All I did was move a couple feet 10, 20 feet, and the perspective completely changes. So you can take these photos from any angle that you want, from as far away as you want, to make it look as small or big as you want. And we're not going to go
I feel like
through.
they chose the angles. Yeah, we'll just zip through. I feel like they chose angles where it couldn't be seen. I feel like they purposely chose the ones where it was very diminished by either being blocked by something or from a lower vantage point.
Every one of these seems to be below the level, and maybe that's because they built it on the highest point in town, which is par for the course for the church to always try to put it as high as they can. Why? So it can be seen by everybody. That's their intent. They are intentionally building it on the highest point to get it as viewed from as far away, and now they're trying to show you how you're not going to see it at all. When that's their intent. Bountiful's up on the hill. All of them are along freeways or where they are viewable from everywhere.
And they really show up at night, as we saw from that lighting slide. Yeah, so we can just zip through these, just some other views. There it is.
Yeah, these ones here are a little odd.
It's like a Where's Waldo game. Look at that.
You're just going to barely see it over the peak of that house. Well, yeah, we can choose just about any place we want to look at it, but look at it from that far away. Look how large that is.
Yeah,
that's
even
the
that
stake
far.
center. See the stake center, the little white steeple out front. Look how small the stake center looks compared to that massive building.
It's 3 times bigger. Yeah.
Again, trees in the way that don't exist, that they seem to have added.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. They put a cardboard cutout, I guess. Yeah. Well, yeah, I can stand anywhere behind an object and say, "Oh, look, you can't even see it. See, you can't see it. It disappears behind her. It's not even above the tree." Okay, I can do that just about anywhere. That doesn't mean it's not large.
This reminds me of Cody. Remember when some of the residents came out of their houses and the city planner was out on the temple site putting up cutouts and things and taking pictures, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And he was taking them for the church, right?
For the church. Yeah, as the city planner. Yeah, trying to convince people that it wasn't as big.
I'm laughing so I don't cry, honestly.
Yeah, 0 feet. Okay. How far away is the temple? This tells me nothing. They're just saying, "Oh, it's on this street. This is what you'll see. So, hey, resident here, don't worry. You're not going to see it." Well,
I'm trying to picture how they, if this isn't an LDS person, what it's like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, we have this cutout. We just kind of put this here. We're just trying to get some information.
It probably is an LDS member's house. That's why they're doing it. I know.
And our last slide is, you saw all these amazing views where it's it's just poking up. It's very hidden. Well, this is the view that our friend Joel, who lives 160 feet from the temple, he's going to open his backyard. And what is he going to see, Landon?
Yeah, he's going to see nothing but wall.
We don't know for sure, but we're guessing. This is something similar to what
he's going to see. Keep in mind that the temple's is usually surrounded by a big gated and a big wall. Yep. So you'll see the wall, and above the wall, you'll see another wall. You'll see some sky, obviously, but you're going to see a whole lot of building. I'm being kind of
facetious, but I'm honestly just trying to show, it is all about perspective. And again, I just want to go back to the reality of all these perspectives. This perspective, I think I was across the street on the sidewalk, so I was pretty much level with everything. And there it is, left-hand side. Look at that fairly sizable house that is absolutely dwarfed by a temple that's going to be the same size.
And that house is actually on a hill, so it's
and the house is even on a hill.
Yeah.
I think the most telling thing, though, is if you can look in, it looks just like a little speck of dust on that scaffolding. That is a grown man in a construction suit. There's a couple up there. You can't even tell that's a human being. This building is so tall. Okay, so let's talk about what's going to happen next. This is really important. Fairview, Texas Town Council meeting. This is going to be Tuesday, August the 6th. This is an important meeting. This is when the church is going to present its application, and this is where the town council is going to vote to either allow or to disallow. And then we'll see what happens after that. But this is going to be really, really important. The Mormon newscast, which streams on our channel Mormonish and also on Mormon Discussions, is actually going to be covering this live, isn't it, Landon?
Yep, August 6th.
Yep, August 6th. So that means there's going to be And we'll get a lot of information out there about this, because I like to call this the little town that could. This town, and I know that they're standing on the backs of every other town that has gone through this. This town is doing things the right way, and it's going to be really interesting to watch what happens. And amazingly, Landon and I are going to go to Texas for this meeting.
Yep.
So we are going to kind of be on the ground reporting, talking to some people ahead of time and afterwards, and we'll be there at that meeting. We're following, of course, in Nemo's footsteps. Nemo did this last time and just had an incredible experience. And so we're going to do that. And again, this will be streaming on Mormonish Podcast, real time on that day. Also on Mormon Discussions as the Mormon Newscast, and we'll get everybody more information about that. And again, it'll be the white shirts. That's what the members of the church have been asked to wear. And it will be the green shirts, the residents, just trying to make sure that their zoning codes are obeyed and that whatever the church builds fits into their community. And let's see, this is a flyer that they put out. I don't know. Do you think we have time to read this? It is pretty interesting. Do you want to read just that one part that starts that "if you will be"? This is from Fairview. The residents there put this out to kind of let people know what's going on.
If you will be in town on August 6, 2024, please plan to attend the town council meeting. Please wear green. Fairview will hold the meeting at Acacia's event venue. The town must rent the venue at taxpayers' expense to accommodate the thousands of LDS members expected to attend the meeting. The town rented the same facility for the June 4th town council meeting. LDS leadership sent emails to multiple stakes and mobilized members from as far away as Round Rock, Texas. It is estimated that 2,000 LDS members descended onto Fairview to influence our town leadership and governmental process. The actions by the LDS disenfranchised dozens, if not hundreds, of Fairview residents from their local government. Many residents drove to Acacia's and turned around when they saw the crowd of non-residents. The Fairview residents who managed to get into the venue did so by showing up 8 hours early and waiting in the heat all day. There were several instances of intimidation of Fairview residents. These issues and concerns have been brought to the town council, and a plan is underway to ensure that non-residents don't marginalize Fairview's residents on August 6th. We hope to have the updated plan in our next issue.
So there it is. It's a pretty supercharged situation, just like the one that was in Lone Mountain. Same thing, pretty supercharged. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens. So, okay, as we end here, we're just going to go quickly through the other temples that we cover. Heber Valley, nothing really new. There's a lawsuit pending, but nothing on the docket. There's not too much to say about it. It's just kind of a waiting game there. The church and the city have joined together as defendants in a lawsuit from a resident over the temple. But again, not really on the docket, nothing really on the horizon. It's very interesting, and no ground broken.
We were just up there, no ground broken. And since the lawsuit's still going on, ain't going to happen this year. And maybe it won't happen ever in that location.
We don't know. We'll keep you updated. Cody, Wyoming Temple. Again, same position we were in. I think the last time we podcasted, they had their final hearing. And this is the residents suing the town, saying, that some things went on that were not the way they were supposed to be. And we need a do-over. The judge was supposed to rule, almost 2 months ago. Am I right on that?
Yeah.
Like weeks and weeks and weeks, to either say LDS Church, it's fine, go ahead and start building, or to say back to square one. You got to take everything back to the P&Z board because it was not done according to the way it should have been legally. No information on that, no ruling. Right now, the prefab pieces from China are sitting on the land right next to the temple, the land that was donated by a church member. And I think they're sitting on the church member's land, right?
Yeah, it's on his land.
Yeah, ready to be moved next door.
Be careful what you wish for when you give land for a temple.
Heber and Cody both have permission to start digging, and nobody has done, or maybe Heber doesn't, but Cody does for sure.
No, Heber has. Yeah,
they
Heber
do.
has everything.
Nothing has happened. Nothing has happened because were they to start and these rulings came out, they possibly could be made to take everything down. So no movement and nothing in Heber or Cody, which is interesting. Now, Bakersfield is one of the newer ones that we're following. They are at the point where they just had their first meeting, where the church comes in with the lawyers and they tell them what's going to happen. So we have a little clip from a news story on that.
And there probably ought to be a correction here. 58-foot spire is what they started with. Remember, they came back and asked for, because it wasn't insulting enough.
It's now 60.
No, it's now like 100 and something. I think.
No, it's like twice that. I do need to correct that. You're right. It is much taller than we thought. So, yep. And so we'll play this little news story if we have the volume on that. Hopefully that'll play. Spin, spin, spin. Our computer is trying to tell us that it's too late at night, right? That we need
right.
Well, if we can't get that going, I can summarize it really quickly. Basically, they just had their first meeting. We had a friend there that was kind of on the ground, and the church was just kind of telling him the same old rhetoric as far as what's going to happen. And his sense was kind of that the neighbors were kind of hearing a lot of this for the first time, maybe a little puzzled about what was really happening or what was going to happen. So we'll continue to update on Bakersfield. But again, it is at the point where they're just having.
Welcome back. An open house is scheduled tonight at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for neighborhoods near a proposed Bakersfield Temple on Stockdale Highway near Jewett Avenue. A church surrounded in criticism because of a 12-story tower that's part of that proposal. The tower is taller than the city code allows for, and neighbors say they just want the temple to follow the rules. 17's Connor Dorr has more.
The proposed church is under fire because of plans to build a 124-foot tower much above the city's height limit.
There's an open house to smooth over the issues with the neighbors. Alan Christensen is a spokesperson for the LDS community.
But we're really trying to focus on the ones that are really just adjacent to the area, and because they're the ones most impacted and concerned. So we want to deal with those concerns and have a dialogue.
The community concern is the tower being over the city code's 60-foot limit. The building will also be entirely lit up at night. Kevin Oliver, a realtor and candidate for Ward 5 and City Council, welcomes the church but opposes the tower being that high.
And I'm sure that the LDS Church, they want to be great neighbors. I know that community; they're wonderful people, and that's all we're asking is just to follow the rules that are on the books.
The open house is set for the LDS Church on 9900 White Oak Drive at 6:30. The church invited over 500 people from neighboring communities. This open house is for those from adjacent communities, Christensen says. There are plans for a bigger open house at a later date.
You know, the church always wants to be really good neighbors. Wherever we go in and put a temple, we want to make sure that we're talking to the neighbors.
We will be at the open house tonight to see how it plays out with locals and to see if there's any middle ground that can be found. Reporting in West Bakersfield, Connor Dorr, 17 News.
Yep, there it is. So they're just getting started, and they have the open house, and our man on the ground said, it was the same kind of rhetoric and information, and the residents were kind of maybe going, maybe just starting to realize, what is this?
Well, I like how he said, all we hear, how many times did we hear? They just want to be good neighbors. Yet they started out with a 58-foot spire, which met the 60-foot limit. And then they went and doubled the height.
Yeah.
And the neighbors are saying, the neighbors are saying, no, we don't want that. And are they listening to the neighbors like we just saw? No, they're ignoring it, saying, nope, we're going with the taller tower because we want to.
Yeah. And it's funny, we don't have them here today for this slideshow, but we have showed before some of those residents that have formed a group. They came up with some really good renderings because it's flat, right? And it's this retirement community with like lower houses.
Single story.
I mean, it's massive. You can't even imagine. I mean, I'm smiling. I don't mean to smile, but it's just so ludicrous that anyone would think that's being neighborly and that's going to fit in all those words that we've heard before. It's ridiculous. So anyway, this is just starting to heat up. And we do kind of have a man on the ground who's giving us some information. And so we'll see what happens. I'm sure we will be reporting on Bakersfield as we go on. And, we had our friend, Randy Bell. He had business there and he took some video there. And we have that posted on our Mormonish YouTube channel. So pretty interesting to look at the site. You really get a sense of what we're talking about when you watch that, if you want to pop over there and watch. So I think our last temple, yes, is the Lone Mountain, Nevada temple. This also is a monster, mega, massive temple that I think is going to block Lone Mountain, right? Their signature feature in their locale there. So let's see, let's go to the next slide. So they recently just had a meeting. Yeah, here we go. Now, if you remember, Lone Mountain is the place where we learned that the council people, a lot of them had been given donations from the church's law firm. And after those donations were made, some codes were changed. So nobody knows quite what to think about that. But one of the council women who did receive a donation had a closed door meeting, meaning that they invited some church representatives, some of the city council members and city representatives. As I understand it, the ones that were there were the ones that were also taken to St. George and taken on the tour of the Red Cliffs Temple, and also taken to the Vegas Temple and let inside behind the desk, where even I couldn't go, you couldn't go, nobody without a recommend could go. So the people that were at the meeting definitely had gotten some, special tours and information about the temple. They also invited some residents, although according to our friends there, they did not invite anybody that was directly impacted by the temple, anybody in that area, 500 feet around. So one of our friends just kind of decided to go. And so we have some information from that. But this is an article we can go through really quickly because they actually have an event coming up. So it says, behind closed doors, Las Vegas city staff met with Lone Mountain homeowners and representatives of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to discuss a temple proposal, which will be cited in 1 week. That 1 week is actually tomorrow, Wednesday. 8 News Now requested to attend the Wednesday meeting to learn more about the discussion between both sides of the LDS temple proposal, but were denied entry to the meeting, which was considered private. Yes, it was a very small, exclusive meeting. City of Las Vegas Councilwoman Frances Allen Polensky wrote a statement to 8 News Now. She called the meeting to ensure both sides of the proposal could sit together and exchange ideas. And as we read through this, you will see that that's all it is. It was just a chance for the church to just go, sure.
It was a chance for the councilwoman to act like she was listening to her constituents. She invited, I think we heard 6 residents.
Yes.
All invited by her.
Yeah,
not
none of the vocal
impacted.
residents. Right.
So yeah, how much input was she looking for there? Did not allow the news in. I believe the lobbyists that the neighborhood group did get invited in and realized what a joke it was. In fact, he's the one who invited the reporters.
And I think you kind of just covered what's in this section of the article. Yeah, it was just key people from the city. And they talked about how she had a virtual forum before, but it was kind of dicey. You couldn't really log on and there were some problems getting questions answered. So again, just trying to do the appearance of, oh, look, we're working with everybody. So let's go to our next one. Okay, you want to read that one real quick? And this is a picture of their lobbyist. The residents group did hire a lobbyist to try to help them work with the city council, because all these cities need to shore up their city and town councils. That is the line of defense. In Heber, no line of defense. They're all LDS. A few of them were even at the groundbreaking of the temple. So nobody was representing residents who were not LDS. Everyone needs to try to shore up their P&Z boards and their city and town councils. It's the only way to try to get the codes and the zoning enforced.
The Tuesday meeting started around 2:30 p.m. and lasted an hour. And Alan Polensky noted in that time, both parties had a productive discussion. The conversation was healthy and all parties had a chance to speak and have their ideas heard, Alan Polensky wrote. I appreciate the participation of everyone who showed up today and engaged in neighborly conversation. However, Nathan Taylor, a consultant and government affairs lobbyist for Lone Mountain residents in opposition to the proposal, believed the meeting had the potential to bring concerns to the bargaining table, but fell short of those hopes. It was not a negotiation, Taylor said. That's what I was brought on for, to negotiate this product and make it work for the area. But as far as how the meeting went, it was a meeting people were heard.
Yeah, and everyone said that. The church rep said, we heard them, we listened, their feelings were understood. It was all about that. Nothing was going to happen. It's a done deal. Nothing.
Yep.
Very disappointing.
Yeah, very disappointing. And so when you hear the church say, "Oh, we're being persecuted," we listen. You stacked who was there. The lobbyist who was there representing the people wasn't even allowed to tell you what they wanted, and yet you're saying that you want to listen and engage and listen to their concerns. No, you blocked him out. You blocked out the members. You invited only people who were on your side were invited, because Alan Polensky needs to be able to say, "I had a public meeting."
Yep.
She has not had a public meeting where anyone could address her specifically, because she knows that the question about taking the
campaign contributions.
campaign
In fact, wasn't there a
contribution.
point where she locked down comments on her public
Yeah,
page or
yeah,
something?
they continually lock them
Which
down.
I
And
think
here
is
she had
illegal. I don't know.
here there was a facilitator there who asked the questions. No one is allowed to directly ask questions to the council members. So
Yeah.
um,
Let's see. Taylor said, although he is happy a meeting was held, the concerns about the proposed temple design remain, according to the residents he represents. We're talking about a 70,000 square foot, 216-foot tall building in the middle of a rural area. He said, it's really large. It's not compatible. It's not harmonious. It does not work with the rural neighborhood. The neighbors are not being unreasonable, according to Taylor, the lobbyist, who said his clients who live in Clark County are just as impacted as those who live within the city of Las Vegas. This is highlighted by 3 sides of the proposed building butting up against the county residents' homes. If there's something that we can do between now and next week, which actually is tomorrow, when the council meeting is set to happen, we would be very happy about that. Taylor said, we've got 1 week left and we're going to do the best job we can to see that the residents get what they need. Well, the week is up and there's nothing they can do. And it's interesting when they talk about talking to the lobbyists, getting them up to speed, they're explaining. And then there's this light bulb moment where he goes, oh my gosh, I understand what is happening to you guys. He saw it very clearly. And this is a rendering that the residents had done. So don't complain to us about scale. They did go through someone who tried to make it pretty accurate, but that is Lone Mountain in the background. The whole area is named for Lone Mountain, this beautiful feature in the landscape, this gorgeous mountain. But I don't really see that anymore. Do you, Landon?
no, it's not alone anymore. It's got another mountain.
Okay. We knew there had to be at least one dad joke, even though we're 3 hours in or whatever it is. So no, this reminds me of the Red Cliffs Temple. When you go see that down there, I mean, it used to be the gorgeous red rocks, the bluff. You're just like, there it is. It completely overtakes all
The entire
the
scenery
environment.
is all.
Yeah, it's the only.
Yes.
Your eye really is drawn to it.
It's not drawn to heaven.
to
It's
the
drawn
temple.
to that building. And
That's
that's
right. You
exactly what they're trying to
cannot-
do.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's exactly what we're trying to explain. Yep. All right. Let's go on here. Let's see. Go ahead, Landon, about the other side of the table. Here we go.
On the other side of the table, inside the closed door meeting, sat Michael Thompson, Director of Construction for the Special Projects Department for the LDS Church, who has been involved in the design, construction, and maintenance of over 60 temples throughout the U.S. and Canada. The focus of the meeting was to listen, Thompson said. We all came to listen, to share our feelings and to share our thoughts. Very heartfelt feelings from everybody that was shared. It was a very good meeting.
It was a
testimony meeting.
We both said it. Jinx, jinx, jinx.
Jinx. It was a testimony meeting in which 80% of the people in there represented the church or were lawyers for the church. Like the church's lawyers are going to express their feelings as, I don't feel good about this. They're paid to say what they're going to say. What good was that? 8 News Now asked Thompson what part of the hour-long meeting stood out to him. Some of the things I think stood out is how a site was approved, he said. I think that was a very beneficial type of understanding for some of the residents. How it was approved?
Yeah, President Nelson sat up in the middle of the night with his lighted pen and he wrote in his notebook, I think the temple should be here. He's talking about the process of, them praying over the location and everything. But
so that makes them feel a lot better. Oh, you can feel good that there's going to be this huge monster that's blocking.
Again, it's like a testimony. Yeah, that the prophet has approved it.
Because the prophet has approved it.
Yep,
the design of the proposed temple has faced scrutiny from residents as the lighting and height of the property are set to conflict with guidelines from an agreement meant to protect the character of the rural neighborhood. City staff have disagreed with some residents' interpretation of the document.
That's an interlocal agreement. And I'm sorry, I've read that document. I disagree with city staff.
Yep, I do too. But city staff has made it very clear that they don't want to be sued again. And that's
Exactly.
everything they're doing is to avoid a lawsuit
Yep.
because they can't afford it.
Yep.
Again, the lawsuit comes into play.
No, and it's true. Vegas is already facing a lawsuit with the developer. And we have one of the council members. We have a little short on it on our Mormonish YouTube channel where he says, look, the last thing the city needs is another lawsuit. So, whoa, everybody's backing off. They can't fight it. If you have enough money and power, you can do whatever you want. And I guess that's the world, I guess that's how it is. Oh dear, I get to read this line. The significance of the temple is to draw our eyes back to God. Right. Thompson said it represents a symbol for the highest form of religious rights within our church, and it draws members from all over the community to be able to look toward God. That's right. Thompson said the light and the height, we hear that all the time, of the proposed temple are meant to represent a beacon of the church and serve as a reference to Jesus Christ in people's lives. Again, the golden arches does the same.
How does a building represent Jesus Christ? I don't
know. That's new too. And now they're trying to say all kinds of things like garments represent Jesus Christ and all kinds of things that we never were told that before. And they're changing wording very subtly and a lot of things on church websites. It's a whole, changing it as they need to. And it's a whole new religion, I feel. Interesting. It's a place for them to go to be closer to their families. Wrong. For those of us that wait outside, completely wrong. To be able to perform the highest ordinance, he said. Supporters of the proposed LDS temple have said the property will help meet the demand for a second location for weddings, specific ceremonies, and other events, which currently are only held in Las Vegas, Nevada temple location. And we had some people run some stats, do some observations of that temple, and we heard that it's not really that full or worse, right?
That's right. So it looks like the fate of the temple is set to be decided by the council on Wednesday.
Yep.
And of course, it's held at 2:00 in the afternoon. So how many residents can take the day off work to go? And what a blessing. You get to use your vacation days if you want to come and make an argument against this temple in your neighborhood.
Yep.
They've set everything to make sure that the residents are not heard and
thousands of blue shirts. Remember they said not swarm. What word am I thinking of? Fill the plaza or whatever. That was the call last time. All the blue shirts showing up.
Yeah, very, very disappointing. What they're going to do is that this vote is to rezone. It has not been rezoned. So right now the temple could not be built there because it doesn't meet the zoning. So as we said, this is what they do. They manipulate the law. They buy political power and manipulate the process. They buy the land without telling anyone. They redefine zoning codes before any of the neighbors even know. They threw out the interlocal agreement and said it didn't apply. Of course, one of the county commissioners, as part of the interlocal agreement, was a former 70 in the church.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah, wow. Talk about able to manipulate the process. So does anyone who says that they are being discriminated against, they have one of the assistant city attorneys is LDS. One of the county commissioners is LDS. Everybody in Hebrew is LDS.
They have the money, the power.
They have the money, the power. They have people in political processes. Stop saying that you're being discriminated against. You, if anything, are manipulating the process and controlling the process, and then you claim you're discriminated against.
Right. And again, nothing is illegal that anybody's doing. It's just a question of, it's so wiggly. Is it unethical?
Is it ethical? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not illegal at all. And I hope we don't ever come across as if we're saying that. We're just raising these questions. And you're right to always claim we're discriminated against, we're victims. That's not the case if you really look at what's going on. So, okay. So again, in a nutshell here with Lone Mountain, it's going to be Wednesday, the 17th, 2 p.m. in the afternoon is what I'm hearing. If anybody wants to watch this, you can go to the Vegas site and they'll just kind of stream the meeting. We'll put it on Mormonish for sure and some different sites if you want to take a look, but it is really
And
interesting.
we should mention it starts at 1 p.m. This is Vegas, which I believe is Pacific time zone.
Yeah.
So 2 p.m., but it'll be 2 p.m. when they get to the church's business.
Yeah,
So.
because there's always a little bit of other business ahead of time. And in this case, what you'll see is a city council that just says yes, yes, yes to the rezoning. And that is the green light for the temple to go ahead. So.
And look at this. They say, be a peacemaker.
Yeah.
Remember when the members read that statement from President Nelson and Heber to the council that was all LDS, and they said, what are you saying? We're not peacemakers.
Ooh, that's a good impression. Yeah, that was the same statement where our wonderful resident got up and said, I'd like to read a statement before this council. It's from the prophet of the Church of the Latter-day, and it says this: be peaceful, get to know each other, be friendly, be happy. And she reads this wonderful statement from conference, and then the guy in the council goes, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she's like, oh, pardon me, I'm very sorry. That's what I had written in my notes. Yeah, I mean, it was just like, oh my God. You really can't make up these sound bites. And they're all on Mormonish Podcast on our YouTube channel.
We've got them all.
Check it out. Go to the temple playlist. So we want to just end here. Are we on hour 4? I don't know.
We're way over what we should be.
Hour 5, hour 6. So it's okay. It's really important. We can't stop podcasting about temples. Final thing is a letter from a faithful member. And this is somebody in the Vegas area who is connected to people that are bishops and stake presidents. This person knows them personally, knows what's going on. And I thought this was really good. Do you want to read the first paragraph? And I'll read the second and you read the third. This is from a faithful member.
I've seen this crisis unfold within my community where the dominating narrative is that the adversary, Satan, is trying to unjustly prevent the temple, and all logical arguments being given by your side are written off as the adversary using logic for his purposes to deceive us. Because questioning leadership is not allowed, new doctrine about steeple height and lighting have been invented to make the leadership and prophet appear spotless. It is embarrassing that the church would offload the work of temple planning to its volunteer members who have no expertise in city planning or interest in logic or neighborly compassion. My family has honestly been very upset over the issue of the temple because they are being told that the city opposes it because they hate them and their beliefs, which is hurtful, divisive, and not true. I'm absolutely furious that my young sisters, ranging from ages 7 to 18, are being told that the city hates them and they cannot question anything, all because the church wants a zoning variance and is too embarrassed to admit that they messed up.
Yeah, it's that persecution, right? It can't be because of any just normal laws or ordinances. It has to be the adversary and persecution. I'm hoping that the council will take the criticisms more seriously if they see that even members of the church, such as myself, are strongly opposed, as that it was a perspective I didn't see in the planning commission meeting. I had a question about the interlocal agreement because I don't want to get something wrong in my letter. In a forum hosted by the City Director of Community Development, Director Seth Floyd, said, the development standard that applies to rural neighborhoods in the city of Las Vegas don't specifically apply to this parcel. However, the church is requesting a change away from being a rural residential parcel to civic parcel. My question is simply, does the temple design conflict with the current regulations of their parcel, even though it is not within the Clark City Island, but next to it? I assume yes, since they are asking for change. However, every statement I see by city officials state that this is completely normal and allowed, which to me makes no sense because there must be something wrong if they're needing to get it approved. So this person is just kind of thinking it through and going, it sounds like they're rezoning and we don't understand, you know, and even faithful members are confused by this and trying to understand what the church is trying to do.
Yeah, they're saying if it's allowed, why are we going through this process? Why isn't it just approved?
Yep.
Even if the church was coming from a completely compliant standpoint, I still do not think the temple should be built. The current temple is never overcrowded, and the money would be better spent going to the impoverished members of the church, both in Las Vegas and outside of it. Even if the temple was absolutely necessary, the church has the money and the means to not only change the design of the temple, but to choose a different site, a luxury that your community does not have. Even if this was legal, they should be peacemakers with your community instead of antagonists. Your concerns are extremely valid, and I want to give a sincere thank you to you and your team for standing up against this corrupt institutional force. Keep fighting.
Yep. And that was a letter sent to the residents of Lone Mountain. So that was encouraging. I think there actually are in all these towns a lot of faithful members who don't like what they see, but for various reasons, they're afraid to be more vocal about it. And until that starts happening, as we've seen before in the Erda Temple here in Utah, where the residents said, no, we can't have this built here. We don't have the infrastructure, and the church took it away, which, as you pointed out, Landon, is more of a scenario where they, it's like, I'm taking my ball away and going home. So
Yep.
Anyway, kind of crazy. All right. Did we get through everything?
I thought so.
I thought so too. For some reason, I can only see half of you on the screen, but hopefully you can see the rest of me and the rest of you, because it's so late. We're just going to end, aren't we?
We are.
I really can just see one of your eyes. Isn't that funny? I hope it looks normal on your screen, does it?
I'm fully here. Yes, it looks normal on my screen, which is
good. Yeah, it's really funny. I don't know what happened. You know what? Maybe my vision is completely blurred from staring at the screen for the last 7 hours. How's it been? Anyway, enough of temples. Please, everybody, comment. Let us know what you all think about all of these different scenarios. If you'd like to, tune into the Lone Mountain City Council meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, the 17th, and you can see for yourself what's happening there. The other really important meeting is in a few weeks on August 6th. That will be the Fairview Town Council, and Landon and I will be there. It will be streamed live on Mormonish Podcast, Mormon Discussions via the Mormon Newscast. So please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast. If you'd like to be made aware of when new episodes come out, you can hit that notification bell. If you'd like to financially help Mormonish Podcast and our temple busting activities, you can always make a donation. We have links in the show notes to donor box, and we are now a 501(c), which we're really excited about. We certainly do appreciate everybody that does donate. We absolutely could not do it without you at all. We also have links to our merch store. If you're interested in anything like that, it's kind of fun to have a Mormonish mug while you watch our 12-hour episodes, right? I swear they're getting longer and longer. But we really appreciate all our viewers and listeners, and we will sign off for now. Thank you so much for Mormonish Podcast. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.